All right, good. Man, it's freaking fun to see everybody on here. On the chat, you got Amanda, you got Christopher. Good to see you, Chris. Alan, you got Raphael. What's up, brother? Dennis Garza, thank you for the low volume shout out. Let me know what's going on. It's good to see your face as well. Jim Bone, always a pleasure. All right, dive into some of this, okay? So what we're going to learn, okay? I'm going to go through a quick review of the sales, the introductory sales process. So I'll jump out of your way. But the introductory sales process, have you guys seen the introduction to sales on the path? It's the SALES. Give me a thumbs up or a yes or a no if you've done that. No. Yes. Nice job, Frankie. Good to see you too. No. All right. I really want to get an understanding. Okay, so a few of you have seen it. Okay. So that helps. I want to get an understanding of where you're at so I know how much to go through. I'm going to go through that very briefly then, okay? And we're going to dive in deeper into some deeper principles. Along those same lines, as you're asking questions, something that will help me, okay? When you're asking questions on here, because I want to make sure that I'm answering them, type the word question, right, in all capital letters, and then spell out your question. It'll help out a ton, okay? That way we can identify them. And then I got the team here too, right? So they'll start answering questions in the chat as well. And then they'll let me know if I miss anything so that we can answer them, right? And if we did miss something, we'll just do a copy paste or let us know so that we can answer them, right? I want to make sure that we go through and get everything answered as we do it. So what we're going to learn, right? So a quick review of the sales process. I'm going to teach you frame control, which that'll probably be the biggest, the biggest section that we go through is frame control, which we'll do right out the gates. Frame control is an instrument that we use, right, to package power and authority and strength and information and status. And when you understand or you truly start to understand how to utilize frame control, it will benefit you in every interaction that you go into. Also, and I'll show you the 4 frames. Okay, there's essentially 4 frames that we use. How to combat those frames as well. Oren Klaff wrote a book called Pitch Anything, where he talks about those as well, which is very, very good. Any of y'all ever read Pitch Anything before? Nobody? All right. Hey, Jay, do you have your volume on? Okay, actually. All right, sweet. All right, then we're going to also go through some response blocks, okay? So response blocks, essentially help us overcome objections and answer questions before they come up. And I'm sure that I mentioned that, at the training, if you've been at the training, right? But we don't run from anything, essentially, right? When we, not only do we want to address the questions and the issues, we want to address them before the client even brings them up, right? So I'm going to teach you and walk you through that process, give you some real life examples, some case study examples, right, on how we've used these principles that I'm about to teach you to grow our real estate business, right? How we've used them with brokers, with sellers, with investors, and even with y'all. When we go to a class and, response blocks, and I mentioned this multiple times in the class, how I weave those in to answer your questions before you even have them and answer your concerns before you even have them, right? Those kind of things start to provide value. So real quick on the, what is sales and diving into that sales process. First thing that I want to cover is helping you understand what sales is not as well. And then what sales is, okay? So first off, what sales is not. It's not about convincing anyone of anything, right? It's about helping people get what they're looking for. The word sell originated from the Scandinavian word sala, right, which means to serve. And I know that might sound like silly, like, okay, cool. Okay, the way we justify selling is to say that we're serving people. But that is truly how I view sales. And as we go through this process, you're going to see that, okay? It is truly being able to provide value, And the only way that we can truly serve, first off, to truly serve, we have to be conscious of the needs of others. It's only when we understand the needs of others that we can, really provide value and help them get what we want, right? And value creation is the key to wealth creation, right? So this whole process is all about creating value, but it's also about maintaining a frame, which you'll see. But the first bits, okay? So let's go into, a quick review of the sales aspect, SALES. Acronyms help me a ton, so I put together a couple acronyms as we go throughout. Sales, okay? So S is to switch places. Right? We want to switch places. By switching places to those that we're speaking with, right, we can start to understand their perspective. The most effective way to serve, once again, is to take the time to understand somebody else's point of view. Before going into any situation, taking the time to really switch places with that person that you're going into that conversation with. And you have to take an unbiased approach at that, right? To truly understand what it is that they would be looking for. We'll get more into all these for sure. Asking questions is another one. Asking questions is key in my opinion too. So it helps us understand their point of view, right? So I want to switch places with them. I want to ask them questions. We need to focus on and ask questions about what they need, right? And then we show them how to get it, right? It's also a power move, by the way. It's a power move because it allows us to play, offense instead of always playing defense, right? And being viewed as the prize. And I'm going to tell you one of the as we get into frame control, I'll talk about the prize frame, right? And I'll talk more about that. But asking questions and being in that state of mind allows us to be viewed as the prize, right? And then the other side, we have L, which is locate likable traits. And I think that this is one of the most important aspects. And I'll probably say that about a bunch of topics that we talk about today, because I feel like all these are important topics, right? But locating likable traits, the most likable people like the most people. They focus on, our focus needs to be outward, not inward, right? Ryan Woolley's sitting right here. Ryan Woolley is one of the best that I know at doing that. Melissa is also very good. Jackson sucks at it. He's really good too. They're all really good, right? But Ryan Woolley is an example. Most people, I would say, when we go into a situation, a social situation, or we're meeting with a broker, or we're talking to an investor, in our mind, it's like, man, do they like me? Do they care about me? Do they value me? That's the natural process, right? But instead, and this is how Ryan Woolley operates. Ryan Woolley operates he has no time for that. His focus is all outward, making sure that they know that he likes them and that he cares about them and that he values them, right? His focus is always outward. It's incredible to me, right? So it's talking and identifying those likable traits of whoever we're going in to talk to. And then embracing objections. Objections and questions, doubts, whatever you call them, those are good things, right? It means they're interested, essentially. So, if they weren't asking questions or having concerns or doubts, they wouldn't be interested, right? They'd just walk away or they would say no, right? So embrace those. Embrace questions, or objections, right? We don't run from them. And once again, we cover them. We want to cover them way before they come up. And this is where response blocks come into play. And obviously, I'll get more into detail with that later. And then S is to smile, okay? Smiling is synonymous with confidence and happiness, okay? And that's infectious, okay? That's infectious. Some of the stuff that we're going to talk about is uncomfortable, right? But as you're having fun through that process, it doesn't feel uncomfortable, right? And it allows you to push things a little bit more because you're having fun doing it, right? You don't take yourself too seriously. This process, this business is supposed to be fun. If it's not fun, you're not doing it right? So smile, have fun with all that, with everything we go through.
Wait, I think that it's time to interject and have Ryan share the quote that he shared with the team this morning. Remember your quote? It goes right along with what Tyler was just saying, Ryan.
Can you guys hear Melissa or Ryan, or do I need to hold the mic up to him? Ryan, jump up here, man. Get in here.
Get in there.
Here, it was Tyler, don't mess it up.
No,
Tyler, don't F it up.
A quote to share with the team.
Let's see. This came up on my Facebook like 4 years ago as a memory today. Your smile is your logo. Your personality is your business card. How you leave others feeling after an experience with you becomes your trademark.
There you go.
Freaking love it, dude. Which has become Ryan Woolley's trademark. You wrote that 4 years ago?
No. It's a quote that I found.
You're not taking credit for the quote?
I won't take credit for that. Give credit to others.
I love it. That's good. Okay. Frame control. I want you to take notes out right now, okay? Because frame control is critical and a critical process. And I want you to understand that in fact, we just had this experience the other day, okay? Where a partner of ours, a partner that we've partnered with a couple times, reached out to us and said, hey, man, do you guys have a private money presentation that you can send over? I'm working with a group of operators. They just did their private money pitch, and it was, just salesy and pushy and just needy, right? And that's not how you ever want to come off, okay? Ever. And frame control is the process that makes sure that we don't come off like that, okay? So there is a fundamental disconnect between the way that we pitch things and the way that it's received, right? At the critical moment that we need to be convincing, 9 out of 10 times we are not convincing, okay? To be convincing in our pitch, and I guess I'll call it a pitch or pitch work, okay? To be convincing in whatever we're pitching or talking about, whether that's to brokers, sellers, investors, team members, whoever, right? The method that we use far outweighs how hard we try, right? So the better that we advocate our position, the more convincing that we're going to be, and the more money that we'll make this way. So, and that's, the same thing that applies for pitching, once again, investors, convincing brokers or sellers to choose us, right? Getting the raise done, all those things come into play. And how do I know this, right? How do I know that this stuff works? Well, I mean, I pitch real estate deals for a living, and I'm pretty decent at it. Okay, I have raised a good chunk of money, tens of millions of dollars, and that has come from billionaires. That's come from those who, barely hit accreditor or sophisticated investor status, and everything in between there, right? It is, and I'll say this too, from the outside, I think some people might think, okay, well, that, is simple. It's a simple process. You offer wealthy people good investments. Easy. But a lot of people offer wealthy people good investments, but we just raise more money than them. And it's because of our process, our method, right, on how we go about it. And that's what I'm going to teach you as we go through here, okay? So my first real business pitch, okay? My first real business pitch, I would say, is when I was 22 years old, okay? So 22 years old, young, what I'm doing is I'm going into try to get a position within the company that I just been hired for. So, I'm young, I'm brand new to the company. I think I've been there for like 2 months, and I'm trying to get one of the most coveted roles in that company, a role that would have made me more money than the gentleman that was interviewing me, which he didn't like, by the way. he didn't love that. He didn't like the idea of some snot-nosed kid making more than him at all. And because of that, he freaking hardballed me out the gates, okay? I could tell that, like, he was just bothered by the fact that I was even taking up his time, right? That I was even there taking up his time. And because of that, he wanted to not only take control, but keep control, right? So what I started to do is I started to framing, right? I just didn't know what I was doing at that point, right? But I really wanted that spot. And I really was hoping that I could, make that happen. And so I asked questions, a ton of questions, man, and understood how to frame things when I went into this presentation. And I knew a little bit about the gentleman. Essentially, here's the definition that I'll give you with frames real quick, okay? A frame, it creates, context and relevance, right? So, and as you'll see as we go through this, you will see that the person who owns the frame really owns the conversation, right? So the person who owns the frame owns the conversation. So, for example, okay, I was in this role play with this gentleman. The interview was essentially a role play, okay? And a role playing the sales process with this gentleman. But all that really meant was that he could be a total dick without any reservations, right? Because he was somebody else. He wasn't himself, right? This was just role play. He was somebody else, right? So he could just be a total dick and say and do whatever he wanted to. He had some, I would call them like deframing tactics, right? And he would say things like, he said things like, listen, I'd be telling him about something. He'd be like, I don't care about that. Just tell me about the cost, okay? I don't care about that. Just tell me about the cost. What's it going to cost me? Trying to throw me off, right? And he would say, I'd be talking about like this special patented feature, right? And he'd be like, special patented feature, more like special ed, right? That's the kind of stuff he's saying to me, right? I remember one time, like right towards the end, he's like something like, hey, bud, get to the point. I only have like 5 more minutes or something like this. And understand, man, I'm freaking 22 years old and trying to get this position. And I know he's not taking it seriously and he's trying to throw me off, but I also knew not to react to those kind of things. And it is also key because there will be people that you're chatting with that will throw things your way, right? You cannot react to those things. I knew that, okay? And I also knew that he would do that because I had asked a bunch of questions to a bunch of people before I went into that situation, and they told me he would, right? So you can imagine, right, how tough it is to progress through this, fake sales conversation, to set the frame, tell the story, reveal the intrigue, offer the prize, nail the hook point, all those kind of things, on and get a decision for somebody to say, yes, let's offer this snot-nosed kid this position, right? As a side note, this is why I think this is why for sure I went full force into doing my own thing, because I hated the job interview process. Just brutal, man. I hated that process. Hated that. But I understood now at this point, right? So anytime that he would try to deframe, I would reframe. And I'll explain all these things as we go through for sure. But anytime he would try to deframe, I would reframe. When he would look, uninterested, I would throw an intrigue frame, right? I would keep him engaged throughout the process. And that helped a ton. So frame control, I'll give you a quick explanation of frame control, okay? We each have these frames on how we view the world, right? We each have these frames on how we view the world, our perspective, right? A lot of people call it a perspective, and we'll call them frames today. In our life, right, our frame, our perspective, right, it determines how we interpret different situations. Well, frames in business are different, okay? Frames in business are less of an interpretation and more of a collision, okay? It's more of a collision. They don't blend or merge like perspectives do. You know, hey, I want to understand different people's perspectives and maybe, you know, we can kind of merge them together. That's not how frames work in business, okay? They collide, okay? And the stronger frame crushes the other frame or absorbs the weaker frame, right? If you have the winning frame, by the way, if you have the winning frame, then you'll enjoy frame control, right? Where your ideas are accepted and followed, okay? But if you lose the frame, you'll be at the mercy of the investor, the mercy of the broker, right? Hoping that they can take you to the promised land, right? You're just at their mercy. So getting a little bit deeper into this, okay? When you control the frame, other people react to you. You're not reacting to others, other people react to you, okay? When you're continually reacting to others, they control the frame. So this has nothing to do, by the way, I want to be very clear with this, has nothing to do with crafty sales, sales techniques and smooth talking, okay? That shit is for people who have already lost the frame, right? The frame collision, right? You have these two frames, two people interacting. The individual who feels like they have to have these sales techniques and smooth talking, that is for those who have already lost the frame. Those who are struggling with a low status position, right? When you fail to control the social frame, which I would say like so much of what we're going to talk about is this kind of stuff, the social frame, right? When you fail to control the social frame, you've already lost at that point, right? So, which leaves you trying to fight for survival, which then that's when people start to, fast talk, spin sell, trial close, all those other things, right? In other words, they are needy and desperate and defeated, okay? Frame control is the opposite of needy. It is the opposite of some smile and dial numbers game, okay? Frame control, once again, like I said, it's this instrument that we use to package power and authority and strength, right, and increase our status. And we'll walk through how to do this and some examples behind that. And everyone uses frames, okay? Whether you realize it or not, everyone uses frames with what they're doing. In business, though, remember, only one frame survives. One frame will crush the other frame or absorb the other frame. Okay, they don't blend, they don't merge, okay? And then the winning frame, once again, governs the social interaction, aka frame control. Frame control, right? I'm gonna fix something. Give me 1 second here. Where's my thing? Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay, so let's get into the caught frame to give you an example, okay? Have y'all ever been pulled over before? Because the caught frame is a perfect example of, Melissa, how many tickets do you have?
None.
It's not true.
No, that's actually very true because I talked myself out of all of my.
That's actually very true, man. Melissa has a strong frame, man. I'll tell you that right now. That is for sure. Okay, but think about this, right? You get pulled over for speeding, okay? What is your frame made of at this point, okay? Are you going to, they pull you over, they, come up to your window, are you going to tell them that you were just going with the flow of traffic? Maybe you go with, I didn't know the speed limit. Maybe you go with the nice guy frame, right? The nice guy frame. Oh, hey, officer, how you doing today? Oh, yeah, no, I usually don't ever speed. You just caught me. I'm sorry about that. I really apologize. I was in a hurry. What's your frame made of, right? If you think about this, the caught frame, it's nearly invincible. It's nearly invincible. Here's why. It is reinforced morally, socially, politically, physically, right? Look at this, the picture here. You're sitting, they're standing physically. Politically, everyone tells you, politically, if you do not, abide, things are going to happen, right? Socially, it's a cop, they have status, right? And then morally, right? Morally, they are once again, we have laws that we're supposed to abide by as citizens, right? Their frame is nearly indestructible. And if you think about this, and it's a perfect example because I know that we can all relate to this. But if you have to, explain your authority, your power position, your leverage, your advantage, whatever, if you feel like you have to explain that, you do not hold the stronger frame, okay? You don't hold the stronger frame. The officer doesn't have to pitch you on why he's giving you a ticket. Let me tell you why I'm going to give you a ticket. He doesn't have to pitch you on that, right? He doesn't have to convince you for you to accept it. You already know that you're going to accept it at that point, right? The cop's frame is very strong. So how we choose a frame, okay? How we choose a frame is we need to understand what our frame is made of, essentially, right? We need to understand what our frame is made of and what their frame is made of. So before I go into any business situation, okay, and this is your actionable takeaway here, okay, that I want you to write down and understand that this is a step that all of you should take before you go talk to a broker, before you go talk to an investor, before you talk with a seller, whoever it is, right? This works with in any type of a situation. So before any business situation, okay, we need to ask ourselves, what frame are we up against, right? There are 3 basic types of frames, okay? And how we need to determine so what is their frame and how will I approach it, essentially, okay? We plan knowing that I can switch things up as needed down the road, but we define it, okay? This person I'm going to go talk to, which one of these frames do they have? The power frame, the time frame, the analyst frame. I'll go through all of these, okay? What frame do they have, and how will I approach busting their frame, okay? And there's strategies and tactics that we use. Which one am I going to use, right? The frame is almost like a picture of what you want the interaction to be about. You have to define this, your frame. You have to define what your frame is before, or if you don't define this, I guess, before, your frame is going to be weak, right? So I look at it almost like goals too. We talk about goals and we talk about, hey, I'm going to define this goal and I'm only going to pursue the things that get me to this goal. Our frame is strong because we know what we're working towards. Same thing before we go into a business interaction. This is my frame. This is how I want that interaction to go. This is their frame that I know that they're going to have and that I'm going to have to combat. And this is how I'm going to combat that, right? I'm planning before I go into anything and everything, right? The different types of frames, okay? So different types of frames. Power frame is just, a hard-ass personality. They're a hard-ass, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to use a power-busting frame. And I'm going to get into more detail on all these, I promise you. We're going to use a power-busting frame. The time frame, okay, the deck is stacked against us at some point, right? And I'll give you examples, right? But the strategy here is, it's called the time constraint. That's how we break that frame, is a time constraint. The analyst frame, okay, the analyst frame is somebody who is extremely analytical, obviously. An engineer type, right? Who just wants to just grill you with questions. Grill you with questions. And here's what's tough about that is, if you've really, prepared, the answers to all their questions. You're going to know the answers to their questions, right? If you've prepared. Most of them, at least, right? But if you just get caught in this string of answering a whole bunch of questions, your frame is weak. That you are reacting to them, not the other way around, okay? And there has to be give and take. We'll talk about that, I promise you. But analyst frame, okay? To break that frame, we're going to use what's called an intrigue frame. I'm going to give you some examples. And then a bonus frame that I'll get more detailed on as well is the prize frame. Now, the prize frame is useful for all three of these opposing frames. The prize frame, can combat what's that word again? Combat each of those, okay? So let's talk about it a little bit. So our power frame. Power frame is the most common frame you're going to come up against, for sure. It's the most common frame. It's individuals who have, a massive ego, a big ego, right? And their power is typically rooted in some sort of status that they have. So, and that's because they have the status because other people give them power and respect, right? But I'll tell you this, they are very vulnerable. This person is very vulnerable to power busting frames, okay? It's because they don't expect it. They have this status. They expect you to treat them like everyone else treats them, essentially, right? To treat them as somebody up below them would treat them, right? That's how they expect you to treat them. And so when you hit them with a power busting frame, they're very vulnerable to that. I'll give you an example, okay? It's actually just happened. We have a gentleman up above our office here who wants to invest, okay? There's 2 layers in this, or 2 floors, 2 stories in the office that I'm in. He's right above me, okay? And he wants to invest. Now, he approached us, right? Wants to invest. But he's older gentleman, not even that old, 70s, something. But he told his son about it. And his son wanted to make sure that, his dad wasn't getting taken advantage of, right? Which I respect that a ton. So his son comes down. His son's name was Mike, and he comes down to essentially sniff out the scammers, right? That were trying to, take advantage of his 78-year-old dad. So he tells me, first off, hey, come up and chat. Come up to my office and chat. Well, first thing that I did to that was say, sorry guys, I'm gonna need you guys to come down to my office to chat. That's a quick little power frame buster. A quick little power frame. Now, I need you guys to come down here. Sorry, I'm a little bit busy. Just come in, or I'm going to have to take a step back, right? So that's easy, right? The do nots, first off. I'll get more into detail with that. But what you cannot do, okay? You cannot react with the power frame. You cannot react to their frame. You can't. When they throw something at you, like the gentleman that was interviewing me, and he's throwing out all these things, right, that are trying to disrupt it, you can't react to that, because if you react to it, you strengthen their frame. And the key is you never do things that strengthen the frame. And those kind of things would be, acting differential or engaging in meaningless small talk. And that sounds backwards, right? We talk about building relationships. We talk about, finding commonality. That's great, okay? But it's not the first thing you do, that's for sure. Because here's what's going to happen. You allow yourself to be viewed at a lower status position because you're trying to look needy if you come off as needy. There's this fine line here, right? Another thing that you don't do is let them tell you what to do, right? So for example, where I know that Mike, I know that he's going to have a power frame. I know that for sure, just having a couple interactions before he said he wanted to come down, right? So he asked me to come up. I said, no, come down. That's a small little act of defiance. It's super simple, right? But it's a small little act of defiance. And I know that sounds dramatic, okay? But it's not dramatic, okay? It's subtle and almost unrecognizable at times, okay? These little power frame busters, they're subtle and unrecognizable, and eventually will just become, second nature. So how do we take the frame at this point, right? Small denial is huge, right? Small denial is huge. It's like having them come down to my office, right? So I'll give you this example. It comes in, right? And I just act, nice. Don't get me wrong. It's not that we're not nice. I'm very nice. I'm a very nice person, right? And his dad is a good dude, man, total stud. But he comes in with a chip on his shoulder for sure, right? Comes in with a chip on his shoulder. And so I just kind of, act, not that I'm super pumped to see him, right? But yes, I'm here. I'm going to answer some of your questions, but I'm also busy, right? So he comes in. The first thing he says is his dad says something like, hey, can you show him, a property or something that you have, or can you tell him about what you do, right? Before I go in to start telling him what I do, I'm going to ask questions, right? I'm going to ask questions. So I'm like, well, yeah, sure, maybe I can definitely dive in. Help me understand, Mike. Help me understand what you do, your background, and I can kind of go from there, maybe, right? And he's like, no, just listen, man, we don't need to do that. Just go ahead and show me a property. And I was like, what? More than willing to show you a property, but how I explain that to you, I need to know kind of who I'm talking to. So give me some guidance here, right? Tell me what you've done. What's your background, and I can get into some nitty gritty details, right? And I think I even said something like, I don't really have time to show you a property today. I can certainly maybe do that later. If it makes sense, maybe I can send you something later, right? But I'm a little busy right now, right? This little takeaway, this little act of defiance, right? Little acts of defiance like, if they come in, if I go into a situation with an investor or a broker and they're like, hey, I only have 15 minutes. I only have 15 minutes to talk. Let's get into it, right? A power busting frame is, well, yeah, no worries. I only have 12 minutes. So let's just dive in. Yeah, I agree. And I'm smiling, right? And I'm joking. I'm being, I'm not like irritated by any of this. I wasn't irritated by Mike at all. This isn't anything with irritation because I respect what he's doing, right? But it's maintaining the status, right? Breaking the power frame. So I only have 15 minutes. Yeah, no, I only have 12 minutes for sure. Like I'm smiling, I'm joking, right? But I'm also serious as well, right? So their frame is busted, right? And they aren't offended because once again, we weren't rude or mean. We're just having fun. Once again, smiling, having fun, right? The rules though, okay? The rules. Don't react. Don't strengthen. Small acts of defiance, light humor, okay? Light humor. Have fun with this kind of stuff. And I'll give you some more examples as we go through. But, the light humor stuff is fun. You have to be able to have fun with it, okay? And I'll dive into some more details here in a second. Okay, the prize frame, okay? I told you that the prize frame can combat all three frames, okay? So let's give an example here, okay? Sundance, there's this company called Sundance Bay, and they are investors, and they want to invest in some of our properties, and they schedule this call with us, okay? Remember this, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we jump on the phone, we prepare, we know it's a big investment group. We're definitely interested in entertaining the conversation, okay? So this is, once again, to a big group of investors, okay? The main guy, the main decision maker, all right? The main decision maker sends his assistant, essentially, to the call. So he doesn't come on the call, he sends his assistant to the call, and the assistant says something like, I won't use names, but the main guy, okay, we'll just call him the main guy. The main guy can't make it until the end of the call, right? We had slotted for a 30-minute call. He can't make it until the end. I have two options at this point. Ryan and I are on this call. We have two options, right? One, we can continue the presentation and lose the power frame at that point. Okay. Or option number 2, we can stop and we stop everything, right? And reframe, right? Reframe using power, time, or the prize frame. So we can reframe using power, time, or prize frame, right? And then we immediately take the frame back at this point. So for an example, how I approach something like this, okay? Hey, the main guy can't make it. Okay, so you're telling me there's going to be a delay to the start, right? Main guy can't make it to the end. Okay, well, you're telling me there's going to be a delay to the start. Okay, I can delay for 10 minutes, but if we can't start by then, we're going to call it a day. And Ryan can attest to this. If we're getting on a call with a broker, a investor, literally anyone, and that call is scheduled for top of the hour, after 5 minutes, if they're not on there, Ryan, what do?
Done. Reschedule.
Roll out. I'm not going to sit there and wait. Why? Because if you're sitting there and waiting, you're needy. I'm not needy. I'm busy. I'm damn busy. And that's not me trying to put a facade. I am. And you are too. You are too, right? It's that I know that, right? So I'm gonna back out of this, right? So this situation, Sundance Bay, they get on. The main guy can't come on. She tells me she's going to come on at the end and say, okay, well, I can delay, but I can delay for 10 minutes max. If not, we're going to call it a day, right? What they'll do is they'll either get that person on the phone right away, or they will say, this is what she did, by the way. No, just go ahead and dive into everything, and we'll brief him or her on everything, right? That is not an option, by the way. It's not an option, okay? So your response would be something like this: no, we're not going to follow your agenda. This meeting is going to start when I say it starts, and it will end when I say it's going to end, right? You're going to make sure that the right people come and get on this phone call on time, and then we're only going to cover the items on my agenda, okay? You're going to pay attention to every minute of my presentation. Now, obviously, you don't really say that, right? You don't really say that, okay? But you only think that way, right? You're only thinking that way because you have this stronger frame, right? But what you actually say is, I can't wait 10 minutes, right? I can wait 10 minutes, but then I'm going to have to leave. That is enough to get the message through. So, hey, I can delay for 10 minutes. Hey, go ahead. We'll brief them on everything. No. Listen, I can delay 10 minutes, but then I have to leave. That's all you have to do to get the message through at that point, to get the message through. And I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. Well, first off, I'm going to tell you this. The first time that you do that, you will feel so uncomfortable. The first time that you do that, you will feel so uncomfortable, and you'll think to yourself, what the hell am I doing? This seems crazy. I know I want this big investment group. I know I want this relationship with this broker. What am I doing? But then the magic will happen, right? Here's what happens. And here's what happened on this call. No, we have 10 minutes, and then I'm going to have to call it a day, right? So then what do? They start to scramble, and this is where the magic starts to happen. They start to react to you, right? That's where the magic happens. All of a sudden, they start to react to you, and they start to scramble to make sure that you're not offended, right? Yeah.
I'm raising my hand in the room.
I know. I love it.
Can I talk? You're going over this, and I'm not sure if you're going to go over Steve and Lee. Oh, yeah. Is scrambling is when we told them, I don't know if they can hear me, but.
You guys can hear Ryan, right? Give me a thumbs up. You guys can hear Ryan. If not, I'll throw the mic over to him.
So we're going through a call. These guys are billionaires. I mean, absolute billionaires. 74th wealthiest in Canada. And we decided we weren't going to move forward with them on a deal, which was scary because it was a 415-unit deal. And I remember we just role played before we got on the call and said, man, are we sure? We got on and we just, when Tyler talks about frame control, I can't think of any other story that fits better than this, of them scrambling. So we tell the son, hey, we're not going to move forward with this deal. And it was, we were still getting a good deal. This is the deal I think we told a lot of you guys where we got $1.8 million, up front. So anyway, we told him he didn't want to do it. He said, hey, you gotta wait. I got to get my dad on the phone. And we said, no, hey, Lee, we're busy, man. We made the decision. No, just wait. We got on the phone. The dad now was adamant. He was not going to budge on the returns that he was going to give to us. Now, this is one major investment group that was going to come in. And he was not going to budge. We went back for 3, 4, 5 times with this guy, trying to get him to budge to our numbers. Finally, when we decided, no, we're sticking to what we're going to stick to, we're going to move forward with the other group, all of a sudden, this billionaire dad that we were so intimidated by, it seemed like at times, started flustering. And all of a sudden, at the very end of the call, remember what he said? He said, I have never been talked to this way. And they wanted to do the deal. They called us how many times after that? 4 or 5 times, trying to get us to do deals with them. And we never did.
So it's a perfect example, man. That's a perfect example of frame control. And here's why it was easy. Jim says, yes, we can hear that loud voice. Ryan don't even need a mic. Here's why that works, okay? Here's why that frame, at that point, at that specific point, was easy to be, that frame was easy to have a strong frame was easy to have a strong frame, okay? It's because we knew we had another offer. We knew that our other offer was paying us more money, giving us a better carve out, more money up front than their offer. It's easy. That's simple. That's a simple way to have a strong frame at that point because we know that we are in the power position, right? So, but I want you to think about that. The reason it was easy to have a strong frame is because we knew that we were in the power position. Now, what do most people do when they go into a situation? They focus on the things that they're not good at, right? Or they view themselves in a lower status position, right? We have to understand, and this is one of the things that when you truly take the time to switch places, flip the view, right, and ask questions to figure out what that other person needs, wants, what they need essentially. When we really do that, we understand that they are also human and they also have needs. They have needs, just like you. And you know what that does? All of a sudden, back up on the plane here, right? We're back up on the plane. Status alignment is there, right? Because they have needs and you know that you can help with their needs. You know that you can help with their needs, which means your identity, your status, your frame is very strong at that point because as much as they kick back, you know that you can help with their needs. And the next example is a perfect example of this, okay? The next example is, or the next frame, is the analyst frame. Now, analyst frame, I'm going to give them the example of Nate. Remember when we went, so this is actually,
hang on, if I can go back before you go to the next slide.
Nope, we've already
went. Remember, if it doesn't pertain to the topic at hand, and I think that you and I talk about this a lot. When you're starting out in this business, you think you need other people. You think you need the investor. You need the broker, right? And the reality is when you change your mindset to they need you.
Yep.
I think it was at that point that we really started to excel of realizing that they need you guys. When you find a good deal, guess what? They're not finding good deals out there. They don't know where to place their money. Brokers can't always find qualified people. They need you guys, and that's what you have to remember is it's a very hard position at first, of feeling like and it gets to a point where you say being needy. You don't want to be needy.
Yeah, it is. So how do you do that? How do you go from knowing that they need you or that you need them, because we do need them too, right? We do need them. So, but how do you go from this status of we need them to well shit, they need me too, right? How do you do that?
Oh, geez, put me on the spot. How do I go from them needing abundance? Thank you. Thinking bigger is what I was thinking.
Thinking bigger, damn it! Come on, right? Come on.
There we go.
Think bigger. No, yeah, it's the abundant mindset, right? A scarcity mindset is like, oh my gosh, if I don't get this broker relationship squared away right here, my business is over. Or if I don't get this investor to commit, my business is over, right? That's a scarcity mindset. There are a million brokers. There's a million investors. There's a million opportunities. That doesn't mean we squander them. It's the opposite, man. We go in weaponized, prepared, but with a strong frame. Okay, and so an example of this. Okay, the analyst frame. Which there's power frame busting in this one as well. Okay, when we did our 415 unit property, which is the one that Ryan was just mentioning with the Canadian father and son who we went a different direction for our investing group. But when we went to go do that deal, we went to dinner with the broker, okay, of that deal, and he definitely tried the power frame. And what he's doing, okay, and what I know going into this dinner is that he will definitely have some sort of a power frame. But I also know that this deal is the biggest deal that he's ever closed on, that he will ever close on. Okay. And I know that his worry, his need, his concern is, do we have the ability to close this deal? Because if we don't have the ability to close this deal, to raise the money to close the deal, then he's going to lose out on a whole bunch of money, and he's going to lose out on this relationship with the seller because he has vetted us and given us this deal, right? But now he's like, man, do they really have the ability to do that? So we go to dinner with him. Okay, this is the same trip that the father and son were actually coming out to view the property as well. We fly in early. We go to dinner with the broker, and once again, he definitely had a power frame. But more than anything, he really just wanted to know our, know numbers, right, and our ability. Which is just this classic analyst frame. Okay, so how do we combat? So first, how do we combat, the analyst frame, right? We combat that with an intrigue frame or a stronger frame. An intrigue frame or a stronger frame. So how do we combat intrigue or stronger? What we don't do is get stuck in just this endless loop of just endless questions, right? Endless questions. We don't do that. So how we handled Nate, okay, and how this all went down. We go to dinner, okay? And we know that we're going to have zero reaction to his attempt at a power frame, okay? And then we also reframed with small acts of defiance, okay? So with light humor, small acts of defiance with light humor. I'll give you this example. We go to dinner, we're sitting down, and I know that Nate's, I probably shouldn't say his name, this guy, this broker, I know this broker is going to try to pay for the bill. I know that. Ryan knows that. So did this just come off the cuff? No, we had this plan going in, and here's how we did it. Once again, power busting frame, okay? We know he's going to pay the bill. So I stand up to go to the restroom, grab, literally sneak to the back. I'm not joking. You sneak to the back, grab the waiter. I'm like, hey man, he is going to try to pay. Okay. Oh, he had already given him the card, by the way. That's what it was. He had even given the waiter the card. And I sneak around. I'm like, hey man, I know that he just gave you that card, but this is an important meeting for me, and I need you you can't let him pay. Okay. Here's my card, and if you use my card and you do what I'm going to ask you to do, I'll give you a gigantic tip, which this was Ryan's card, so I'm all about giving a gigantic tip, okay? It's not a big deal.
Now I know why the bills are so big.
So I tell him, though, this is what I'm telling him to do. And it's a genius, okay? Genius. I tell him to take the card back to him and tell him that the card declined, okay? That the card declined. Because why would I want him to do that? Power busting frame. I'm this big, mean, scary broker. Shit, I can't even pay for dinner, right? All of a sudden, now power busting frame. But when that happens, this is the light humor, okay? When that happens and the waiter says, hey, sorry, sir, your card declined. I reach over and I tap him on the shoulder and I'm like, come on. You know your money's no good with us. You know your money doesn't work here. You know your money's no good here, right? Something along those lines, right? But then we laugh about it. So, hey, come on, man, you know your money doesn't work here, right? And we laugh about it. Now he knows I'm paying, right? We're paying, right? It's this small little act of defiance, crushes his power frame, but it's fun. We have fun. We laugh, right? Okay. Now the intrigue frame, though. So intrigue frame, so that crushed his power frame. There's, this back and forth, but then we have this intrigue frame. So Nate says something along the lines of, this is an $8 million. Okay, this is how he said it. And correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but he says something along the lines of like, this is an $8 million raise. And listen, I know you have investors, but everyone has investors until they don't, okay? So how much in solid commitment do you have right now? And by solid, I mean how much has actually been wired. Now, mind you, we had 0 wired. Goose egg, we had 0 wired. We had 0 wired at this point, okay? So you would think that at that point, our frame would be weak. But it's not weak. You want to know why? Because we knew that he would probably ask some sort of question like that. Not that bold. Okay, that question is bold. Everyone has investors until they don't. How much do you actually have wired, right? We have 0 wired, right? But this is how Ryan and I combat this, okay? This analyst frame. I'm kind of confused. Like, is $8 million a bigger raise than you're used to seeing? First off, I know that it's a bigger raise than he's used to seeing, and it's a bigger raise than we had seen, right? That was the biggest raise that we had done at that point. So it was, hold on, is $8 million, I'm kind of confused, is $8 million a bigger raise than you're used to seeing or something? Okay. Then I pause and I say, or no, you said that. Ryan is the one who said, hold on, is $8 million a bigger raise than you're used to seeing? And then I followed up with, I guess that explains why Lisa's been reaching out to Ron for other deals, Now that is a power busting frame right away, right? So hold on, is $8 million bigger than you're used to seeing? Right? This probably explains why Lisa has reached out to other brokers. Now, you're crazy if you don't think that's an intrigue frame, by the way. You're crazy if you don't think that didn't ping the shit out of him at that point. Hold on, you're going to other brokers? You're talking to other brokers? I got plenty of deals. What are you talking about? I got plenty of deals, right? He's immediately like, wait a minute. So then I come back and I follow it up with, no, don't take that the wrong way. Like, they've been very clear that you are their favorite broker of all time, is what they say all the time. He's the favorite broker of all time. But we've also been very clear that we need enough deal flow to keep our investors happy. Anyway, yeah, 8 million isn't our problem. Deal flow is our problem. So, Nate, what solid deals do you have in the pipeline? And by solid, I mean at least 200 plus units and actually have an agreement with the seller. Because listen, every broker says they have deals until they don't. Same thing, right? I just rephrased this whole thing, right? But I said it in a way that is very fun. I'm not mad. I'm not angry. I'm not combative. I'm just having fun. We're having a conversation here, right? And once again, we had 0 investors lined up. 0 investors lined up at this point. But I'm going to tell you why our frame was rock solid, okay? It was rock solid. It is because we knew that we were dedicated to getting them in place. We had made a decision to get the investors in place, and our frame was rock solid because of that. Rock solid. Now, I want to make this clear, okay? Because I know that you're probably thinking, and that is an extreme example. Think about that example, okay? That example of being able to come back to something so quickly and hit them with that, right? That's an extreme example. And I know that a lot of you think that you wouldn't be able to do that in the moment, right? The moment's happening, you're at dinner, you're like, okay, Nate just asked me where the investors are and how solid it is. Okay, he's using an intrigue frame. Oh, shit, how do I combat an intrigue frame again? Shit, is he done talking? He's already done talking. Oh, wait, is he waiting for me? Is everyone staring at me? Everyone's staring at me. Oh my gosh, act normal. Okay, I can wait 10 minutes, but then I have to call it a day, right? Shit, wrong frame pressure, right? You just feel like you're just totally screwing up, right? I mean, you caught me, right? No, I don't have, I don't have any clue how to source $8 million, right? That's how a lot of us feel like we're going to act in that moment, okay? And you will, if you don't prepare and have a strong frame, right? If you don't prepare and have a strong frame, so many times, and this is one of my biggest pet peeves, is people will say, and Ryan, you can tell me if you've ever heard anything like this. Have you ever heard something like, you adjusting my camera over there?
Yeah, yeah.
Is it getting crooked back there or what?
My LCD, the white screens aren't equal on either side. I just have to fix it.
Thank you, because it was driving me crazy too. Right. How many times have you been told before, oh, you're just natural at that. You're just naturally good at that.
Oh, yeah.
Ever been told that before?
Yeah.
Okay. Ryan is on Tinder right now, I'm pretty positive, because he has no idea what I'm talking about, okay?
I'm not gonna lie, I just swipe up.
Come on.
All right.
Okay.
Is it right?
Jason asked, what exactly is a frame, okay? A frame, so to give you this example, a frame is how we view things, okay? And it's whoever's frame is stronger, okay? So why was our frame, right, stronger than the brokers? It's because we knew for certain that we had the investors in place to close on the deal. Another thing we have to understand is we already had that deal under contract. We already had it under contract. Now, so I also knew that I wanted to instill confidence in the broker so that he could quit worrying, because he was worried. So value creation, right? How do I think that that's valuable? I know it's valuable because listen, we have made a decision to complete the raise. I know that we're going to do that. Do I know how I'm going to do that? No, but I know we're going to do that because we've determined that we're going to do that, right? But I also want to provide value to this broker. And one of the best ways that you can provide value is taking stress and nervous anxiousness out of people's minds, man. I understand. I'm very aware. I'm dead serious when I say this. I'm very aware that was his biggest check that he had ever seen. Probably still his biggest check he'd ever seen to this day. I know that. I want him to make that check. I'm not angry at all. I'm dead serious, man. I'm not angry that he's out there asking me those questions. If the roles were reversed, I'd be asking the exact same questions. So I'm not angry about it. But what I want to do is I want him to know that I'm very confident in what we're doing. We are very confident in what we're doing. And I want him to be able to just relax a little bit and help him understand that his job and his focus should be more deals, not less deals. Not trying to worry about our job. Our job is to find the money. His job is to continue to find more deals, right? And so my frame was very strong because I had decided what that frame was. And you can't bust that at that point, right? And I had these small little disruptors. As he's trying to disrupt our frame, we're disrupting his frame, like saying, hey, your credit card's declined. All of a sudden, boom, it knocks down, right? And it's this back and forth type situation that's happening. You're going to say something?
No, I was going to say, when you say naturally talented, it makes me think of, when we first started out raising money. I think two examples, Steph Curry, one that we went over the other day, but, I've had to work hard, man, at practicing frame control or practicing sales or talking to investors. I think a lot of people think, man, just because we're at where we're at and we close all these deals, that it's just come easy and you guys just do that. It's easy for you guys. I can't tell you how many, I tell you guys, there's so many times I've cried, I've cried on the phone to Tyler, and I've had to work at it, and a lot of you guys that don't know me, I talk a lot. But what a lot of people don't know is I'm very introverted. In a lot of ways, I'm introverted. I would rather just go sit in my house, work, not talk to anyone, and that's why I underwrite, and that's why I appreciate it, But Tyler has forced me to get out and talk to people. We go over the example, we watched a Steph Curry video the other day, and a lot of people think that if you don't know basketball, Steph Curry, one of the best basketball players out there, right besides Michael Jordan and LeBron James, huh? There you go. But, the example was Steph Curry, even at a young age, was out shooting shots 30 minutes before anyone else got there. After practice was over, he was shooting shots, And so the thing is things don't come natural to us. We have to work at them.
Yeah. And how many times do we have conversations before we even go into a call?
Always.
And here, the more that you do that, and be honest, every time we do that, and another thing is we don't have to do that as much anymore. But in the beginning, we did it all the time, and I hated it. I always hated it, right? So I'm going to lead the conversation as an example. And what would Ryan do? Ryan would play devil's advocate. Well, hey, no, this is how I'm going to approach it. Okay, well, let me play devil's advocate. And he would throw something in the way. Well, what if they hit you with this? Ryan, they're not going to do that, right? And I hated it. But what did it make me do? It made me truly think about their situation, their needs, their concerns, which means I developed a plan to go about it, right? Dennis Garza just said, I employed frame technique with a broker in Tennessee. Didn't even know I was doing it. I love it. Do you know what's interesting is, I don't know if you're saying that he didn't know you were doing it or you didn't know you were doing it. But either way, if you're doing it correctly, no, it's not like some battle it's not some battle. It is a conversation and it's fun. It's not this, and I don't always have to have the frame, right? There's this give and take, and I will talk about that later in the next section for sure, right? There's this give and take, but it's practice. So I don't want you to discredit and just say that it's naturally talented or that they just, are naturally good at it. Nothing bothers me more than a statement like that because it's a perfect example, just why I put this up here, of a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. We all have to work at things like this, man. We all have to work at things like this. Don't look at where we're at now and how we handle it now. Look at what we did to get there. So a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. They think that whatever comes up, right? They think that it's just something you're born with, right? Something you're born with, skills, right? A growth mindset, it comes from hard work and can always improve. Challenges are something to avoid, could reveal lack of skill, which makes them tend to give up easily, right? Growth mindset should be embraced. Challenges should be embraced as an opportunity to grow, be more persistent. Effort, it's unnecessary. It's something you do, when you're not good enough. Growth mindset, it's essential. It's a path to mastery. Effort. I'm telling you right now that we put in a lot of effort. It's because one of the things that we just hired a new, in-office underwriter and then coaches and all sorts of stuff. And one of the things that we always look for when we do that kind of stuff is what's the question you asked him when you were talking about? He gave you an example, but you don't ever want to be stumped, right? You don't ever want to be.
All right, right, yeah. I just told you. I've always studied. I think I'm okay at underwriting, but I try to learn everything else in the business because I just don't want to be stumped. Everyone wants to be stumped, so I study and study and study.
That's true. It's almost like a pride, right? Where you don't want to be stumped with a question, but because of that, it forces you to put more effort in. You're not comfortable, right? You're growing. And then feedback, right? A fixed mindset, they get defensive, take it personal. Growth mindset's useful. It's something to learn from in areas that you can improve on. And then this last one, I want to bullet point: setbacks. Okay, setbacks for a fixed mindset, they blame other people. They get discouraged. If you have a setback and you feel like you want to start placing blame somewhere else, or you're feeling discouraged, you can look and you know that you're dealing with a fixed mindset, which is going to come all the time. But you can combat it with a growth mindset, right? Setback, something you have a conversation. Because for every conversation with Nate that I just talked about, that guy, I shouldn't use names, that broker, there's other ones that didn't go so well. So what do we do when it doesn't go so well? We sit back and we talk. How should we approach it differently? What did we do wrong, right? Knowing what I know now, right? How would I go back and go about it, right? And then, so look at Mike Connor just gave me feedback and said, the green screen is hard to read. I'm not going to get discouraged with that. I'm not going to blame Ryan for putting this picture up here. I'm going to use it as feedback. Thanks, Mike, for sure. It's hard to, Kerwin and Vernita, good to see you guys, by the way. Will the slides be available on the site? We can probably put the slides together for you and send it over, sure. Jackson reaches under, I can't see Jackson, he's like behind my screens, he just reaches under with a big thumbs up. So yes, Bernie and Gervin, they'll be on there, okay? Okay, so we have to be able to understand what we did to get there. So let me help you understand what we did to get there, okay? We visualize the process, and these are your actions. I want you to write these down as actionable takeaways because I'm serious. This is the process that I go through before I go into any type of these situations, okay? And same with Nate. Okay, so first we visualize the process. What I mean by that is we define the outcome. It's the same as goals, man. That's why I love goal setting. Is it applies to more than just our quarterly goals or our yearly goals, right? We define what it is going to be, right? Set a clear picture of how you want the conversation to go, how you want to be perceived, what success looks like. Define it, right? And to Jason's question, Jason asked, what is a frame? Your frame, so setting a clear picture of how you want the conversation to go, how you want to be perceived, how what success looks like, that's your frame, that's your frame. No situation has meaning until you frame it, right? Until you frame what that is. And once again, frames are like mental structures or that shape the world and shape how we see the world, And once again, the frame that we put around a situation controls the meaning, right? So we have to make sure that we define it. That's why mindset and identity are so important, by the way. Mindset and identity are so important because when we view ourselves as an investor, right? As we view ourselves as an investor who is dedicated to performing, like the example with the broker, dedicated to performing, our frame becomes that we are an investor who has the knowledge, resources, and commitment that they need. That's our frame. Our frame is that we are investors who have the knowledge, resources, commitment that broker needs, right? And that is the same for investors, brokers, team members, whoever, sellers, right? And that is rock solid as long as you define it. Okay, the other side is identify. So step one is to identify to determine what the outcome is going to be. Step two, identify wants and needs. And I've already talked about this. I'm talking about it again because it's key. Okay, you need to identify what their wants and needs are. And literally, I write all these things down and we discuss them. Okay, and I'll get a little bit more into detail in the next session. But it's flipping the focus, or as I talked about in the sales acronym, switching places. Right, switching places, identifying what they want. Step one should define what you want, right? That's defining what you want, why you are there, and why you want it. Step two here should define what they want and why they want it, right? I want to know what they want and why they want it so that I can make sure that I am helping them get there, right? That I'm calming their nerves, helping them get that solution. And then number three is identify objections and concerns. Write them down. So many people try to pretend like those are not there. Oh man, if I don't write them down, I want to have a positive mindset, so I don't want to bring in any negatives, because if I bring in the negatives, the potential negatives, I'm going to attract them into my life with law of attraction. That's not how it works. They are going to be, and I'm going to tell you what my frame is actually on that. My frame is that they're not negatives. Those things are not negatives. My frame, how I view objections, concerns, questions, whatever you want to call them, my frame, how I view that, those are not objections. Those are not bad, right? Those are good things. So we can't avoid those kind of things, right? There will be objections, there will be concerns. We don't want to be blindsided by them. Because I'm going to tell you right now that they're going to come up. Okay? And if you don't bring them up, once again, response blocks, if you don't bring them up before they do, or you're not aware of what those are before they bring them up, they are going to still bring them up, by the way, because they're real. They still exist. They're just going to bring them up at the most inopportune times. We want to control the narrative, right? When we control the narrative, we can bring those things up, we can address the concerns, and we can knock those things down as we go so that we are in control of the conversation and the path to make sure that the goal happens, right? The step one happens, the outcome happens, success happens. Okay, so we need to unearth them beforehand. And then four, these are actionable items. I hope you're taking notes on these things and remember, because I'm telling you, this is the process that I do every time. Four is I visualize. When I talked to when I was putting this together, and I actually talked about there. I put in my note outline or whatever the slide about Nate, and I went in and I talked to Brittany. I was like, "Geez, man, I got to tell you, I just rehashed this experience with Nate." And I was like, "It's so funny to me, man. I got to tell you what we did, right?" And I told her, we told the waiter, not to tell him that his credit card declined, and then he said this, and we combated with this, right? And she's like, "Geez, that's intimidating. It's intimidating because if I'm sitting there and I'm listening to this, and I'm not good at sales, because I'm not good at sales, is what she says. I'm going to think of this like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. There's no way I can do this. There's no way I could do that, right?" And I said, "No, I think that a lot of people will view it like that." But I said, "But do you know what I do before those conversations?" And she says, "No." And I go, well, "Let me tell you what I do." And I walk through these steps. And step four, right? I said, what I do is I visualize it, right? So what I do is I put on, so once we know their concerns, essentially, we know their concerns, we need to determine how to resolve them, right? How can I resolve that concern? I don't want to leave it under the rug. I want to resolve it. I truly want to resolve it because it won't progress until it is resolved, right? And response blocks, which we'll get into next section, help us resolve the concern, before it's even brought up, right? And once again, we'll talk about this in a minute, but I want to know, what the actual response blocks are, what those things are so that I can weave them in. And then here's what I do. I practice, I rehearse, and I visualize, okay? And this is the key. This is what people, I will tell you, most people I know do not do. They go in and they just hope that it goes well. It's not what I do. After I've defined, what I want to happen, and now it's time to rehearse or visualize that process. And I put my headphones on, and I listen to a specific song. This is what works for me, okay? I put my Bose headphones on and I listen to a specific song. It's 10 minutes long. And then what I do, and it's all instrumentals, right? It's 10 minutes long. And I close my eyes and I visualize how I want the meeting to go. How I want the meeting to go. Now, why am I doing that? Am I doing it because I'm some hippy dippy dude? Yes, I am a hippy dippy dude, okay?
Dippy dude for sure.
Easy. I'm doing that because I want to visualize that process from start to finish, right? And I've done this now multiple times before I go into that conversation. And so think about this. I've practiced that conversation. When I'm in that conversation with the broker, with the seller, with an investor, it's not the first time I've had that conversation. I've had that conversation in my head a number of times. And that might sound weird, but I'm going to tell you what that does is that strengthens your frame. Okay? Because, and I don't just go through the good stuff in that, by the way. I don't just go through like the good stuff. I will visualize them asking me a tough question, and then I will visualize how I reply to that tough question. And if I don't know what the reply is, then I know that I need to think through that process more. I need to actually write it out. And I promise you that this stuff works. I've had that conversation multiple times in my head. I'm not just going in there and winging it when I get in there. I am executing a well-designed plan. Now, will they still ask questions at points that throw you off and that you're not prepared for or that you didn't visualize? Sure. But you will have went through this conversation so many times that all of a sudden in your head, that all of a sudden your identity is strengthened. Your identity is strengthened, which really that's your frame. Your frame is the same as your identity, in my opinion. It may change in all sorts of different circumstances, but your frame is your identity, right? You need to rehearse and visualize the process. You need to. If you're going in winging it, you will not do a good job, period. It's not because you're not good. It's because you haven't prepared beforehand, right? You think of it like a play, something. I don't know. Let's say a play. A dance. I'll give you an example, okay? This is actually a perfect example. We had a luau last night. We have a private, so it's our leadership training out here for our annual planning meeting for multifamily mindset and for MF Capital Partners. And so we've been having meetings, and then last night we had a private luau. So we had a private luau, and part of the private luau, and I didn't even know this, by the way, they brought Marley up, and Marley has been taking hula lessons, okay? And they bring Marley up and one other girl, her name's Mila, to do their dance, right? So I'm so pumped to see it, right? Well, Marley had been practicing a completely different dance. I didn't know that. I did not know this, by the way. I had no idea about this until Brittany told me once we got home. They had been practicing a completely different dance all week. I didn't know. They were surprising me with this, right? They've been practicing a completely different dance all week. And then they get up there and they throw on a different song and a different dance. Well, what does Marley do? She tries her damnedest. And she watches the other girl and what she's doing. And Marley did an amazing job. You want to know why? Because in her mind, even though all of a sudden the song is different, she was prepared. And she had made a decision to dance and to perform. And she killed it. Cutest freaking hula dancer in the world, by the way. In the world. She crushed it, right? Her frame was strong because she had prepared before. Even with a curveball, her frame was strong, right? We have to visualize that process. We have to practice. No different than anything else. Okay, so quick frame control review, okay? The most important elements, so you can write these down, the most important elements of frame control. Time is number one. Time. Dive right in to what you're doing, okay? Provide an outline. All right, Ryan, thanks so much for jumping on the call. I have about 15 minutes. I have another call in 15 minutes. What we're going to do, outline, okay? I would like to know a little bit about yourself. Then I'll give you some background on me. And then if it makes sense, we can open up to questions and next steps, right? Something along those lines. There's an outline, right? I'm taking control. It's this easy way to take control of the narrative. Number two is disruption. Show appreciation, show interest, see their perspective, but don't always try to pull them close, okay? Some examples of this is if they aren't paying attention, if they're not paying attention, you're going through something, they're not paying attention. And this is, happened with the Canadian group, by the way. The dad's name was Steve. And we're at dinner in Hickory, where the property was, and I'm going through like this presentation essentially, right? So they come, we tour the property, we go to a restaurant, and I have this presentation that I'm going through. Steve's not paying attention at that presentation. Do you remember what I did, Ryan? Do you remember this at all? He's not paying attention, okay? So what do? I say something. I know he's not paying attention. Then I go, "What's your thoughts on that, Steve?" And I just pause. "What's your thoughts on that?" And Steve looks up. He's like, "Say again. What's my thoughts on what?" "Steve, are you fading off in my presentation right now?" "Hey, ma'am, can we get some coffee over here?" Right? It's fun. It's something, but it immediately disrupts the frame, right? Does Steve think that I'm going to do that? No, because people don't do that to him. Why? Because he's a billionaire. But I do, because you want to know why? Because he needs me. He needs us. He wants this deal. I know he wants this deal. But you have to disrupt the frame. If there is any sort of awkward situations, you disrupt it. I'll give you another example of that. This actually happened last night, and it's happened before, but we're going into the luau, and one of our buddies is out smoking, right? And Marley says, "Oh, man, it smells so, he's smoking, it smells so bad over there." And I look over to him, and I was like, "Sammy," so what do I want to do? I'm like, "Oh my gosh, Marley, it's so awkward, it's like, geez." But what do? You don't run from it because it's there, you address it. "Hey, Sammy, she's not wrong, man. That spelled bad. You got to quit that, man. It's going to kill you, right? You just laugh. You just laugh about it, right? You embrace it. Sometimes that goes well. Sometimes it doesn't. You'll learn as you go, right? All right. Another one is if they've, let's say that they have, a question or something, right? And they say it, with an aggressive tone. and I had to, Melissa, do you remember Carlos in LA?
Oh, yes.
So there's this guy, I was teaching a class, okay? This is a great example. I was teaching a class and there's a guy in the back row. His name's Carlos. And he is not happy about something, okay? I can't even remember what, but he is asking a question, but really he's just berating me, okay? And I sit up front and I listen, because you want to listen. We're going to go over this next section too, some of those. Listen, right? But he's asking a question, but man, he is being so aggressive with that question, right? Just so aggressive. And so I pause, I wait, I listen, and I say, hey, Carlos, I definitely appreciate the question, but watch the effing tone, okay? That's exactly what came out of my mouth. That came out of my mouth. I appreciate the question, but watch the effing tone. And then immediately I'm like, oh my gosh, I just said that. But what do? I laugh about it. Everyone in the room laughs about it, thank God. And power frame disrupted, right? Power frame disrupted. It's these small little acts of defiance as long as you're having fun, light humor, right? And then questions is the other one. The other time would be questions, okay? Questions is, ask questions and then listen. Listen. Ryan Willie, once again, is an amazing listener. He's very, very good at listening. And that's a power move as well, because now you're asking the questions, which allows you to be viewed, once again, as the prize, especially when they realize that you can help them with the things that they need help with, right? So if we, if we have a call and it's all about them grilling me with questions, you grilling you with questions, we lose the frame. So we ask questions, right? We ask questions and we let them ask questions as well. We certainly let them ask questions as well. And once again, that's what we'll go through as we get back from the break. But I want to be clear with that. We want to control the narrative, right? That's the stronger frame. Now, we're going to go through, we're going to take a 15-minute break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to go through response blocks and some more actionable steps on really how you approach that, okay? Some do's and some don'ts to kind of wrap this side up. Ryan just did this with my Belarus billionaire investor. Alex tried to take control at the beginning, and Ryan immediately took over and had the stronger frame. I love it. Okay, so actually, let's do this first before we take a quick break. Does anybody have some questions? If you want to type some questions, we'll answer a couple questions, and then we'll go to the break and come back.
As I'm eating banana bread here,
yes.
Phenomenal Hawaiian banana bread. What's interesting about this Alex guy is he's trying to tell me where he wanted to invest, and I told him, listen, this is not a fit for us then. And immediately he's changed, and he was like, oh, well, I'm open to invest wherever, but he was set on investing in specific areas. And it was like, all right, this is just not the best investment for you then. Yeah. And it changed. It's amazing how it happens, and you'll be scared at first, but you'll be amazed as you continue to practice this and do it at how people react to you. Yeah, it is. The reason I love that is because sometimes people think that you need to mold to whoever that person is, whatever person that is you're chatting with, you need to mold to them. It is not the case. Okay, you have to have like people. Some of the most successful people that I know have strong moral, like they're definite in their purpose, in their aim. They have strong moral purposes. Ryan knows where he's investing because it's where we invest. We invest there tactically for a reason. It's not that we just willy nilly went in there. We know why we're there. So when somebody says, "Hey, I want to invest here," it's not that. It might not even be that it's bad. It's that we don't invest there. We invest here. So if you want to invest with us, we're here, right? So Melissa just asked, if this works so well for me in real estate, why can't I get a girlfriend? It's because his frame is not strong. His frame is not strong. And by frame, I mean your bodily structure is not strong. Okay. I did see your question come in. Jason, what's up, brother? Good to see you, by the way. Are we trying to identify the perspective of others so we can control the outcome? No, that's not how I would necessarily say it. I would say that we're trying to identify the perspective of others so that we can know so we can know if it's a fit or not, right? So we can know how to help them and provide value to get them what they need, right? But key to this as well is also to define, what your perspective is, right? And what your goals are there too, and stay rooted in those. I don't know. I have this. I'll give you this example, okay? Because it's kind of a good example. That's not a strong frame, by the way. It's a horrible frame. It's a phenomenal example, okay? Our babysitter. Me and Brittany love to go, surfing in the mornings, but with the kids, right? We have packs of Marty. It's hard for us to both go at the same time. And our babysitter, we asked her, she lives in the same neighborhood as us. We asked her if she would want to come over in the mornings. Kids would probably still be asleep at that point, but it just gives us some time to get out super early, come back. And she says, yes, I will do that, but I will not come any earlier than I think it was like 6:30 or 7 is what she set that time frame at. It was in the summer. 6:30 or 7, and it's $15 per kid. Listen, she's 14, 15 years old. Very few 14, 15-year-olds, very few 70-year-olds have a frame that strong that they view their worth that amount, right? And sometimes people will think, I'm going to lose opportunities by doing that. No, you gain opportunities by doing that. You gain opportunities because your frame is strong and you respect yourself, right? And if you want other people to respect you, you have to respect yourself. And we pay her $15 per kid because it's early, and she doesn't show up at 6:30. She doesn't show up any earlier than 6:30, right? Because her frame was strong. She knew. So but she once again, it's understanding as well what they're needing. So really, really quick with that, Tyler. getting back to the Alex example, you're going to find a lot of like foreign money coming, wanting to come in here, or big investors. Going back to the Alex, he was so set on investing in the East Coast. You talked about listening earlier. His two top things were he wanted to learn the business, he wanted to learn multifamily in the U.S., right? And he wanted a good return. It wasn't the East Coast, right? I mean, he made it sound like it was the East Coast, but because we listened to what it was, and because our frame was strong at where we invest and what our returns are, he quickly changed and was like, oh, no. As soon as I said, no, this is not a good fit for you then, because this is where we invest and this is why we invest there. It was all of a sudden, the East Coast was obsolete now. He didn't care about the East Coast because I listened and I identified what his wants were first. I think that's so important.
So important, by the way. That's golden, man. So important. Because, and actually, I'm pretty sure I have this in the notes for, or the slides or whatever for the next section, which is to drill down farther, right? Because even though somebody says they want something, there's these underlying motives behind it, and we have to understand what they truly want, right? What do they really want to invest in the East Coast? This might be what they're, what they think they want, but what do they truly want? They want returns. So if we can show them how they can get better returns here because of X, Y, Z, that frame is rock solid, right? Rock solid, and they see that because they see that we can help them get what they need. So Nicole, good to see you too, asked to explain the prize frame. Okay, she says it's not a question; it's a request, right? So explain the prize frame. The prize frame is just that you're viewed as the prize, right? So don't overthink that. It is that it's you are the prize. They are there to win your business, not the other way around. Okay, I'm not there to try to win them as a client and convince them to be a client. We are here, right, and they are there to try to gain our business. And I might even ask questions along the lines of as we go into that. Hey, I'm picky with who I do business with. Help me understand. I'll do this with brokers all the time. I'm dead serious. And we'll picky with like who I do business with. Want to make sure that it's a good long-term fit. Help me understand why you think it'd be a good long-term solution. Help me understand why you think that we'd be a good fit, right? So now what are they doing? Now they're telling me why I should do business with them. Was that mean? Was that out of line? No, not at all. That is just a small little subtle question that now is having them tell me why I should consider them, right? Immediately that is a prize frame and switched around, right? You're very welcome. Perfect. Okay, any other questions before we take a quick break? All right, okay, it is, I don't know what time it is where you're at, but where I'm at, it's 9:40 in the morning, okay, so 40 minutes after the hour.
Tell them we're just going to whale watch for 15 minutes. There's whales.
I'm telling you right now, Maui right now, this is my favorite time of year in Maui, man. We just sit here in my office and just whale watch, and especially when you're down at the beach, just whale watch. There's whales everywhere, jumping. It's incredible, man.
That's actually not an exaggeration. That's what we do. Is we sit in your office. We occasionally will look out the window, but the majority of the time we sit in your office.
We've been here a lot this week.
Just say it.
Did you answer Raphael's question?
Let me see. When you have done that to the broker, do they ever come back and say, "I don't need you," type of thing?
Great question.
It's a great question, Raphael. It's a great question. So if they do that, so I'm going to ask you a question to that question, and then I'm going to answer your question. When they do, I want to make sure this is sinking, right? When they do that, right? So our frame that we just said is a prize frame, right? So it's a prize frame. So hey, help me understand why it would be a good fit, right? Pick with who I do business with. Help me understand it would be a good fit. That's my frame, right? And if they ask or they say something along those lines, like, "Oh, I don't need you," type of thing, what are they trying to do at that point? Anybody can type it in, not just Raphael. Plus your frame, right? They are trying to deframe. So they're trying to deframe. So yeah, Amanda says to take back control. That's it. So now how do you take back control? Okay, so the broker says, or we say, "Hey, I'm picky with who I do business with. Picky with who I do business with. Help me understand why we'd be a good fit." And they say something like, "I don't need you." I'll do a straight up takeaway. Oh, okay, definitely not a fit then. I want to make sure that whoever I'm with definitely feels like they need my business too, because I certainly know that I'm going to need your business. So it needs to be a fit on both sides. So it's okay. Do you know anybody that you refer me to that might be something that would be a good fit, right? It's a straight up takeaway. And listen, I'm going to tell you right now that if it comes to the point where we hang up, I'm okay with that. I'm completely okay with that. Why? Because it's an abundance. It's not because I want to ruin relationships. That's not what I do. It's the opposite of that, okay? But I have a strong moral frame. My frame is I want to do business with people that are a good fit, period. And if that person doesn't feel like they need me, it's not a good fit. It's not a good fit. So especially if they're not even willing to have the conversation, right? So I will back out of that situation. Tyler might respond, I don't effing need you either. Tanya, I would not say that. Because then that would be reacting to their frame, right? I show no, oh, I know you're kidding. I know you're kidding for sure. I'm not bothered by it at all. It's, okay, no stress. Hey, so do you know anybody else in your office there that I can speak with that might be a good fit? Any other people that you could refer me to? I'm still going to try to take a negative and turn it into a positive, right? But I'm not bothered. I'm not irritated. I might be irritated later, like that son of a B, right? But I don't show that on the phone or on the FaceTime or face-to-face or whatever it is, right? But it is, your frame is strong. That's why you have to define what that frame is and then continue to go. And I'm going to tell you right now that you practice, right? You continue to practice and it'll become second nature and you'll sit back and realize that you were doing it without even realizing that you were doing it, right?
You talked about Nate, and I think about this question with the brokers. I don't need you. It's important to tell the broker what you need as well, right? And this may not pertain to what you want, but I think back to Nate and Cedars closing the 40. We were very clear at what our goal was. It was to close bigger deals. He had the 40 unit. And we did not want to do this 40 unit deal. I mean, it was too small. Did not want to do it. Actually, one of the best returns we've ever had on any of our deals. But we were very clear. Listen, what was our goal is the ability. We want to show him we have the ability to close on deals. So we did the 40-unit deal, but we held him accountable to get us bigger deals after that. And what did he do? With less than 30 days afterwards, brought us at 415, and we closed on 415. And so that's what's important too, is showing them or holding them accountable of what you truly want. A lot of brokers will bring you smaller deals because they're testing you.
Totally.
Can you close on a deal?
Yep.
I don't care if it's a 100-unit deal or 40-unit. Can you close? But you have to tell them every single time what your goal is after that.
Yep. What you're working towards, what the goal is. I love it. Define it, right? Because that's also, once again, a strong frame. You know what you want. That's your frame, man. You know what you want, right?
At that point, they need you, right? I mean, they need you at that point.
Always, yeah.
All right. I just want to see how good looking I look in this thing before we get started.
You're literally on top of the world.
Hang on, here we go. Hang on. If I go like this, I look better. Okay. All right. So, hey, welcome back, guys. It's great to be here. Tyler, I just had to run out really quick. It's actually, it is cool. Paxton's birthday was a week ago, and Marley's is next week. So they came to say hi and give him something real quick. So he'll be right back in. But I want to answer some questions. So go ahead and send them in the chat if I can answer any questions right now before we get started. It's kind of a cool little backdrop, isn't it? Is it MF? Oh boy, I'm getting old, man. 42.
Is the MF market getting saturated with buyers?
With buyers. Mike, that's an interesting question. And I think Tyler and I would answer it similarly, but I think we may have different approaches as well. But no, the interesting thing is CoStar came out with a report with COVID going on that 14.1% of properties will default this year in 2021. That's why it's so important to establish relationships now. We talk about cycles a lot. With that going on, we're going to be prepared as we have good relationships with brokers of that 14.1% that come onto the market. Even if those 14.1 don't come onto the market, there's plenty of opportunities out there. The one thing that I see differently, Mike, is so many people, when they start out, Tyler and I were involved in a network, so many people want to go after the big deal, the 150-unit, 200-unit deal, and they forget that there's other good opportunities out there. You've got Carson and Megan on here that put under contract a 51-unit and a 54-unit. Both have extremely great returns. Each one of those, the acquisition fee is $480,000 for the two combined. Oh, no, sorry, $390,000 combined. That's almost $400,000. So, no, I don't think that it's going to get saturated. It's completely different than like a residential, market. Hopefully, does that answer your question, Mike?
What are you seeing the average per door price?
I gotta go see the eye doctor when I get. There's too much sun out here in Hawaii. So the average door, that's interesting. There's really not an answer to that. It depends on the market that you're in. For example, each market that you go to, there's different quadrants. So it's important when you guys go to a market to understand how quadrants work. For example, in the Columbia market, I know Justin Nanny is on here. I think Justin, you still on here? So it's interesting. Justin is looking at a deal that is, maybe type it in, Justin, I think it's $110,000 a door, where we literally are about 5-7 miles away, and we're finding them at $75,000 a door. So it's important to get comparables in the market to know what you're going to pay for a property. The reason that his property is so good is it's right by a university, literally right by the university, right down in the downtown area. So it's good when you look into a market, and all those on here that are looking at market research, you want to take a map. Literally, if you come to my house, I have maps out, and technology, and Melissa's laughing at me because she's 10 years younger. For all of you that know, Rand McNally maps, you can laugh if you want. I said, Loretta, go ahead and laugh, Loretta. I see you there. It is Rand McNally maps I have at my house, and I break them into quadrants of where I want to go into. You can write on there, A, B, C, D areas. You can put on there cost per door in those areas. And that's why, when Tyler teaches you, we like to focus on, 3 markets, maybe 5 at the most, like 3 markets. So break them up, Mike. I can't tell you, Texas is going to be a different number. You can go into North Texas where we're at. It's 90,000 a door, but you get into, Dallas, and you're looking at, 100 to 105,000 a door. Hopefully that answers your question.
What is the smallest commercial size complex should be considered for investments?
You know what? That's a good question, Frankie. What's the smallest commercial size complex? So, believe it or not, our smallest property, Tyler has owned a 20 unit, 22 units or 20 units?
Well, it goes back to your goals.
It really goes to your goals, and defining your goals is it breaking into a market? Is it acquisition fees? Is it overall returns? We own a 31 unit and a 34 unit in the Cleveland, Ohio area. The thing is we got those deals at extremely inexpensive. Those deals have more than doubled in a 2.5 year period. So, like Melissa said, it really depends on what your goal is. A broker told us Nashville is running 180 per door. I don't know the Nashville market. Mike, if you send me a message, I can connect you with some people that are in that market that can tell you a little bit better. I know they're getting stuff at like 80 a door, but they're completely off market and they're C properties. So I think it depends on what vintage or what you're looking at, whether it's BC properties, what year they were built. There's a lot to play into that. If you email me, hopefully you have my email information. More than willing to answer that question or connect you with some people in that market. In fact, I think Dennis Carter said you're in that market right now, aren't you? Or is that Memphis? Let's see if he responds. I think Dennis is on here, but I think Dennis is actually Memphis. Okay, but maybe you guys can connect. He knows the Tennessee market he's been looking at, so he might be able to give you a better understanding.
When do you want to get a golf lesson from? Actually, I'm down for that.
Hang
I
on.
think that needs to be staffed.
Is that good?
No, you picked up your front foot. Everybody knows you leave that.
All I know is I played Wiley with these guys and I was low score. That's all that matters.
It was not the best.
Question, Alan. Alan.
After we identify and we underwrite a deal that we feel is promised, what is the next step in the progression if we don't have the raise covered within our investor network?
which we identify and we underwrite a deal that we feel is promise, what is the next step in the progression if we don't have the raise covered within our investor network? Go start raising. So you gotta start raising or find people to help you with the raise, or it's not focusing on, I know this sounds generic, but it's just not. It's not focusing on what the problem is. Here's the problem. Most people focus 90% of the problem and 10% on the solutions. And you're asking for a solution, Alan, so I want to make this clear. I know that for sure, right? But it is going and finding the solutions, right? Finding the solutions. So if you don't have the raise covered, then go start to begin the raise. My question to you, Alan, if that is the case, do you have a deal that you are trying to, and you don't have the raise covered, or is this hypothetical?
Wrote it and the numbers look good. Luke and Ryan at that point, or our mentor?
I said Lupin and Zach at that point to make sure Zach's in the office. For those of you who don't know.
Oh, you haven't. So we're not talking about a deal. You haven't even submitted an offer yet.
Oh, you looked at Zach. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yes, submit an offer, but I mean, how often have you had the complete raise covered up front?
No, yeah, we can get into that in another one, like on a Facebook thing. But it is, we don't always have the full raise. I mean, now we do. I mean, money. We have more money than we have deals, probably.
Well,
but
we know we have tons of investors, but it's still the commitments, that kind of stuff. It always change. But yeah, at that point, Alan, you got to submit your offer, right? Start that process. If you think back to the process, within the manual, the bootcamp manual, right? It takes you from getting, sourcing money, sourcing deals, submitting the offers, right? Building your teams, right? That process. Okay, but I am going to dive back in because I got a lot to cover on this. A little bit off topic.
guys, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Sorry I had to run out there real quick. Yeah, I need this one done, and then it's that one, right?
This one.
Yep. Okay. Y'all ready to dive back in? Give me a thumbs up, a yes, a fist pump, a Yahoo. I see some. That works too. We need to work on that too. And work on mine too. Okay. We're going to go into response blocks. And I know that if you've ever been to one of my classes, I've talked about response blocks. But I will never forget, the introduction to what I'm about to teach you, okay? I'll also never forget why I decided that this approach wasn't an option, but an obligation. So we can start there. Far before I started raising capital for multifamily deals, I ran a semi-successful, web design, web hosting company, right? And I was also semi-proficient when it came to social media marketing. So because of that, one of the biggest grocery retailers in the western half of the United States asked me to speak and train their individual store owners on the power of social media. Okay, my job was to help them see why they needed to essentially make it a focus. Why they needed to make it a focus and train them on some basic steps that they needed to take to make it a focus. Right. So what started out great quickly went downhill as they started to grill me with questions and concerns and all that kind of stuff. Right. And here's the thing, I knew the answer to the questions. I had solutions to their concerns. I had even, I wasn't even there to, first off, I'd even prepared responses to, their objections. But it didn't matter, okay? It didn't matter. Here's why. It's because I was full on backed into a corner and couldn't get out of it. Couldn't get out of that corner, couldn't get off stage quick enough. It's because, instead of me addressing those up front, right, I was weaponized with the answers, but then they started grilling me with these questions, these business owners, right? And now all of a sudden I'm backed up and I'm just trying to fire answers back and forth, right? Fire answers. And, reflecting on that presentation on my flight home was mortifying to me. Mortifying to me. I wasn't even trying to sell them anything. I was literally just paid to provide information, right? To provide information, valuable, factual, and actionable information. And I did that. I did exactly that. But I'll tell you what I didn't do, okay? What I didn't do is I didn't provide value. And I didn't provide value because I didn't even know. And I'll say, even though I was prepared for everything that they threw my way, I tried to run from them, right? I tried to run from those things, hoping that they wouldn't get brought up. And instead of attacking them head on, there was some inaction there, right? And that inaction caused massive amounts of discomfort for me. And we all lost because I wasn't there to sell them. I thought I wasn't there to sell them, okay? And I'm gonna tell you what happened. I get off stage, I go, on my flight home, I had to disconnect for a little bit because I literally was mortified by, I just didn't feel like it went well. I know it didn't go well, right? Okay. Response blocks. Okay, let me give you this rundown of how we use response blocks, okay? Because how we use response blocks are going to be very different than that, right? But that main principle is still the same, which is we don't run from anything, right? We address it. And not only should we address it, we should address it before they bring it up, right? And I also want to clarify this about, this isn't about blocking someone's responses, okay? This strategy is about truly caring about their concerns, their questions, their objections. In fact, we care so much that not only do we, have we thought about it, thought through what their objections or concerns are, their biggest concerns are, we've designed a way to address them up front, right? So that they don't even have to bring them up, which is valuable. And why do we do that? Because it's valuable, man. It's valuable for us and it's valuable for them. It's valuable to those that we're addressing, and adds value. Once again, value creation is key to wealth creation. So first, let's define value, okay? Value is defined, I define value as anything of worth or service that is of worth or service, right, when provided to another, that creates joy for both parties, right? That is value creation, in my opinion. So it'll be joyous for them because, if done correctly, their concerns are resolved, right? Their concerns are resolved. It'll be joyous for us because when we do that, this strategy will save us time, build massive amounts of credibility with brokers, investors, team members, everybody else, right? And make the process enjoyable. It makes the process enjoyable, and it'll weaponize you with the ability to provide value at every stage of the process. Literally every stage of the process. And I couldn't be more sincere about that. And I'm going to give you some examples, okay? Give you some examples of how we've used response blocks, how that works, but they're preliminary step. And you've heard me talk about this multiple times already today. Multiple times. We'll just flip the focus, okay? We'll just flip the focus. So all that means, okay, instead of pushing our ideas on somebody, it is way better to guide them to discover that on their own, right? So guide them to discover that. That way they believe it and they get excited about it, right? So instead of us trying to push, it's not what we do. It's not push. It is taking a step back, right? Understanding, flipping the focus, understanding that, they will want to buy, as an example, whether that be an investor, a broker, whatever, right? And feel good about a chance to work with you if you approach it the right way, which is flipping the focus. Everyone has a different perspective. We have to take the times to view things from the perspective of others. It's only by doing that, in my opinion, that we can truly begin to understand their concerns, their questions, or their needs or objections in the first place, right? If we're going to try to prepare for those, we have to be able to flip the focus to be able to do that. So, instead of researching what I should be asking a broker, I researched what brokers are taught to look for in investors, and I catered my message to meet that narrative. And most people just focus solely on what they want, which is why they can't find good deals, they can't find investors, all these things. It's because they don't know the needs of other people. They focus solely on their own needs. So instead of focusing on our needs, right, we need to flip the focus, switch places, however you want to say that. And we need to focus on, and speak about what they need, right? And then show them how we can, help them get it. And that's not manipulation. That is value creation to truly understand what they need and help them get that, right? So I want to be clear on how we do this too, though, okay? Because one of the things that Ryan mentioned, I think, Ryan, you were mentioning about the investor on the wanted to invest on the East Coast, right? But he really didn't want to invest on the East Coast. What did he want?
I want to go return. I want to learn about, how to do multifamily in the U.S.
Okay, so this process here, okay? Write it down and remember, okay? Because we have to dig deeper, right? We have to dig deeper into what they truly want. Okay, so we have stated positions and we have underlying motives, right? Stated positions and underlying motives. So we're flipping the script. We're asking them questions. A stated position, right, is what they say they want, right? But an underlying motive. Hey, Jackson, do you mind filling this guy up for me? Is that cool? Right, there's my bad. Thanks so much, man. Then we have underlying motivations. So underlying motivations, this is what is making them want what they want, right? It is what they're worried about, what they hope for. So, for example, Nate, right? Which I've already used his name a million times, so now I'm just stuck with it. Nate, the broker interview. Thank you. That was so fascinating. Thank you so much. Can I tell him about? I just got to sidestep 1 second, okay? We're on Road to Hana, and Ryan keeps telling me.
You just got to pull the video up, dude.
I don't have it. Ryan keeps telling me I can't believe I didn't put it in here. That he's going to jump off cliffs because he didn't last time. Jackson says he's going to do it too.
A full year of torment.
Full year of torment. Our first stop, we go to a place where there's a rope swing, and pretty awesome little jump. Jackson jumps up there, and he doesn't go off the rope swing. He dives, and it's a far jump. That's why you use the rope swing. He straight up dives down, and I am terrified that he is going to die. I'm terrified. And right after him is Ryan, and Ryan does a backflip off the rock. I had no idea that Ryan had anything remotely close to that in his tool belt. Okay, and they come paddling back, and Jackson says, I was like, I am blown away right now. Jackson says, come on, man. Us big boys don't play. If I'm going to lose my breath hiking up here, you better believe I'm going to go full send, right? Which was just the funniest. That's the quote of the week, man, for sure. So thank you, Jackson, for diving and getting water so quickly. You're amazing, okay? So with Nate as an example, okay, we had to truly dive into what Nate was looking for, right? What his needs were, what he was worried about. He was worried that we wouldn't come up with a raise. So the job there is to help him understand that we are very confident that we're going to come up with a raise, right? So figuring out what the other party wants, that seems simple, but I'm going to tell you right now, and what you should do is write a note with a warning, okay, to remind yourself, because basic human needs, right? Our basic human needs or expectations will get in the way of this. Tends to get in the way, right? So we assume the needs of others are going to conflict with our own needs, right? But they certainly do not conflict with our own needs. We have to get past these blinders, and we get past those blinders by getting relentlessly curious about what is really motivating them, right? Ryan, during that little break that we had, you were getting relentlessly motivated about what Alec truly wants. Is that true?
Sure, yeah.
He's talking about his goals and how he was getting there, and what those are, right? It's getting relentlessly motivated on what Alec really wants. Is Alec's in my office back here? So this is what we have to do. We have to ask questions, dig deeper, right? Dig deeper on those. So we have so I prepare some I call them calibrated questions, right? And I learned that. Where did I get that book? I think it's called Never Split the Difference. Okay. Any of y'all read Never Split the Difference? Write it in the chat box there. Sweet. Alan, gosh, I love it. All right. No? Great book, man. It's a phenomenal book. But he talks about calibrated questions and what and how, right? And Like, so, and literally this is what I do, right? I have these questions prepared. I can freaking show you an outline of like when I'm going into a big conversation, right? With an investor, or with a, a broker, with a seller, whatever it is. I will have these calibrated questions. Once again, planning, right? So what I'll do, these what and how questions they can pertain to so much, man. So they say what they want, right? And, it would be things like, I put them in my notes here so don't miss any of them. It would be, what are you hoping to accomplish, right? So digging down deeper, what are you hoping to accomplish? How is that worthwhile, right? Once again, just trying to dig up more. How is that worthwhile? What's the core issues here, right? What's the core issue that we're trying to accomplish? How does that affect things? What's the biggest challenge that you're facing? That one is probably my favorite one, right? What is the biggest challenge that you're facing? I'm not asking them, hey, what do you need help with? How can I provide value? It's what challenge you're facing. They're going to tell you how you can help. And then how does this fit what the objective is? So it is these what and how questions, right? That help us understand not just the state of position, but the underlying motives. Key. Dig deeper, discover. Get not just on the surface level. We don't do anything surface level, right? We want to get rooted on a deeper level. I need you to remember that. Okay. From there, I want to give you an example of this, okay? With some response blocks, we'll talk about the Signal Hill interview. And it goes exactly into what we just talked about with lacing in response blocks, but also calibrated questions. We prepared calibrated questions and status alignment statements as we went into this, okay? So Signal Hill example, okay? And I have used this at the boot camp a couple times, the 3-day class that I've taught. So if you've already heard this example, listen again for some more tips, okay? So, it was a seller's interview. So, and we had never had a seller's interview. This is a call to offer deal. We had never had to have a seller interview at this point. And we were trying to prepare. Once again, prepare, right? So we asked questions to anybody and everybody. We asked questions, to anyone and everyone that, had a seller interview. We spoke to people who had been the seller in a seller's interview. Once again, flipping the focus, switching places, however you want to say it. And we realized that there were 3 common concerns that they would have, that everybody mentioned, right? The biggest concerns that they probably have. One, that we would be dedicated to actually doing everything we needed to close the deal. Because the last thing that the seller wanted to do is put the deal under contract and then have it fall out of contract and have to go back to a call to offer situation, because now their frame is weak, right? 2 would be, where would we be sourcing the capital? And that's debt and equity, but definitely primarily equity. Where is the down payment, the equity, right, going to come from? And then number 3 is, would we actually try to retrade down the road? Renegotiate down the road, right? Those are the 3 biggest concerns after I've talked to a bunch of people that were common things, right? So knowing that those would be the 3 biggest concerns on their mind, right? What do we want to do? Response blocks. We want to cover them before they do. We want to cover them before they bring them up. Once again, we want to play offense instead of defense, right? So how we did that? We structured literally a statement, right? As we went in, right? We structured a statement of how we would align status, and then also how we would overcome those concerns right out the gates, right? So we sit down, we're having the conversation, we dive right in, right? Once again, status alignment. I'm not going to try to go in and just have a bunch of small talk. I want to dive right in, man. I'm busy and I'm excited to meet him. It was him and her actually, but we want to dive right in, right? So we structured a statement. Our statement went like this. We structure our deals through a typical syndication model and have built a great investor base that can take down any equity piece under 12 million. As good as our investor base is, before we committed to the project, we wanted to make sure we had a pulse on their risk appetite, right? On what they were doing, on their risk appetite. And then we kind of step back and we're like, normally we wouldn't even do that. Normally it wouldn't even be a question. But due to the pandemic and the looming economic concerns, we wanted to make sure. This wasn't happening during the pandemic, but we had a seller's interview as well for Rivercrest and for Charbonneau, where we actually had to sit down and meet with the seller, and that's how we backed off. We had a statement, then we backed off, right? Normally it wouldn't even be a question, but man, due to the pandemic, looming economic concerns, right, we wanted to make sure. We were happy to see, right? We're super happy to see that the overwhelming response was bullish, right? Super bullish for a number of different reasons, right? One being the fact that conventional rates are down so much, 100 basis points year over year. Okay. So that statement there, right? To give you an example, what it does is it creates status alignment. It creates status alignment and also, blocks their responses, overcomes their concerns. Let's think about it. We structure through a typical syndication model, have built a great investor base. We've used industry terms, right? We can take down an equity piece, under 12 million. So we're using industry terms. We're telling them immediately out the gates where our equity is coming from. And then to drill it down farther, it is as good as, because what they're concerned be, well, yeah, I know you built a good investor base, but do they want to invest in this environment? For the example with Charbonneau, right? So as good as our investor base is, we, before we committed to the project, we went out and we, made sure that we figured out the pulse, how our investors were feeling. So that's an action that we've taken. So we've used industry terms, we've overcome some concerns, we've taken an action to help them once again understand where the money is coming from, where that is coming from, and help them understand that typically wouldn't even be a question, but we took the initiative to go and do that. And the other side of that is they want to make sure that we won't retrade down the road, right? We won't retrade. So how do we do that? We talk about how excited our investors are about the deal, and we talk about how we've negotiated the deal up front. You've noticed that as we went through the negotiation process, I know that LOI is accepted, and then whichever individual you move forward with will negotiate the PSA. You'll see that we do our negotiations up front through the PSA. We don't retrade afterwards. As long as it's not anything structural, anything like that, we don't retrade. We do our negotiations up front so that we can, then it's smooth sailing from there, which Once again, we know what we're doing. Our frame is strong. We're going to, there's things that we're going to have to negotiate because that's reality. The seller's expecting that. But I'm going to do that up front so that if it's not a fit, you, Mr. Broker, Mr. Seller, I'm going to provide value for you. If it's not a fit, both of us will part ways. Why? Because I don't want to put you in a weak position to have to go back to a call to offers. That's valuable to the seller. And listen, I have an abundant mentality. We have an abundant mentality where I know that if this deal isn't a fit, there's going to be plenty of deals down the road, right? So it's overcoming their concerns right out front, right out the gates, right? Right out the gates. So another example of this, okay, is initial investor conversations. So my biggest concern, when I was new, and probably Ryan's too, but for me, for sure, my biggest concern is that people didn't know me as an investor, right? People knew me as an internet guy. I was an internet guy. So I wanted to bring it up before they did. I always wanted to bring it up before they did, especially if it was somebody that I knew. I wanted to make sure that I covered it before they did. So my biggest concerns, I'd say, number one, they didn't know me as a real estate guy. Number two is I didn't have money to put into the deals. And I was terrified about that because I wanted to make sure that I knew that I was like investing, right? And I knew that the most investors, the questions they ask are you investing? How quickly do I get my money back? And are you investing in the deal as well? So I'm not investing because I don't have any money. And, yes, I can tell you how quickly you're going to get your money back, but is it validated because I'm new, right? I don't know. Like these were the concerns in my head, right? So I needed a couple things. I needed a response block, and I needed to find a way to develop a strong frame. And how do we do that, right? My frame is weak because I don't have money to invest, and I'm new. That's a weak frame when I go into a conversation. So how do I strengthen that frame? Well, you find solutions, right? You focus on solutions. Alan, we talked about the raise not being done. We focus on solutions. We strengthen our frame, right? So major questions, right? That investors ask once again, do you have experience? Are you investing in the deal, skin in the game, right? So how I would overcome that, right? How I would overcome something like that. So first off, how I strengthen my frame is I position myself as much as I can. Let's talk about the new portion, okay? The new portion. I try to position myself as much as possible to combat the newness, right? So sponsors, mentors, coaches, I had all those kind of things, right? Because that strengthened my frame as an investor. That it was like, yeah, man, I'm not the reason you're going to invest in this deal, but you're going to want to invest in this because of the deal. And man, look at my team members here, right? Look at their schedule of real estate. Look at their experience, right? That strengthens the frame. But I would want to weave in a response block, make sure that I cover it up front. So, hey, Ryan, I know you don't know me as an investor, right? But I'm new to this. I wanted to start acquiring real estate to have passive income to spend more time with family. So I've been putting these deals together. What I've done is I've partnered with people that have far more experience than I do. So I want to make this clear. They're going to be the major drivers here, right? And I can show you their track record, their experience, what they've done, right? Well, there you go. And it helps me with that initial conversation. But I haven't swept it under the rug. I've addressed it so that they don't have to. It's not this looming question for them, right? They know that it's there. They know. I know that it's on their mind. I cover it, and by covering it, it's confidence, right? I'm not afraid of the question. I'm confident about the question so much that I'm going to bring it up beforehand. And then the skin in the game. Once again, and I talk about this in the boot camp too. Skin in the game. We do have skin in the game. I mean, first off, you can invest your acquisition fee, those kind of things, if you want to, or even a portion. Your sponsors have been guaranteeing the loan, signing on the loan, or due diligence costs, upfront costs, all those kind of things. Your frame is strong, right? Because you've taken the time to define why your frame is strong. If you go in and you don't define why your frame is strong, then it's weak, right? So you need to define why is it strong. How can I strengthen it? If it's not strong, how can I strengthen it, right? You have to define those types of things. All right. Another one is a private money presentation. This is I would say, is what we're very, very good at, right? Because I try to take a different approach. Most people, and I'll say this as well, is being a passive investor. Passively investing has truly helped me understand how to flip the focus, right? So I wanted to make money, but I definitely didn't want to lose money. And I hated, I also hated, by the way, having to schedule a call to ask questions. So, you back to Alan's point to raising funds to give you this breakdown, right? So you have a deal under contract, and now you provide this property packet that you're sending to investors, and now you give this property packet. Now they have to schedule a call to ask questions. As a passive investor, sincerely, I hated that, right? I hated that because I didn't want to take the time to do that kind of stuff, right? As an operator, my view was even different now. I would send a property packet, answer the same questions a million times, very time consuming. Think about the time saved by structuring your presentation properly, right? If you have 40 investors that all have the same questions and concerns, and let's say that you're spending an hour per investor, that's 40 hours, man. If it's a half hour, that's still 20 hours. If you cover it up front properly, cover those things up front properly, in a 1 hour pitch. So now 39 hours. Now you have 39 hours of free time that's freed up to go to the beach, to go work on business, work on your business plan, right? All of that benefits the investors and us. So questions put us on the defense as well, right? So which gives us a weaker frame. So we want to make sure that we cover them up front. So, in the introduction portion of my private money presentation, the very beginning of it. So what I do now is we create a property packet, and then we record a video, and we send that video to investors so that they can go through and watch the video. And then we can schedule calls as needed. But the video is very strategic, okay? We have a whole class called Perfecting Private Money. What's that one called? Property packet perfection, geez, something with perfect and property packet. Property packet perfection, which is how you go through the thing. So for example, the introduction, right? My very first slides, I know that investors certainly want to make money, but they definitely do not want to lose money, right? So they want to know what the risks are. Now, is there risk on a real estate deal? Yes or no? Yes or no? Making sure y'all are still awake out there. Is there risk on it? There we go. Of course, right? It's a very pointed question. Of course. We know that. Your investors know that. So what do most people do? Most people, you go watch a private money presentation and you tell me if I'm wrong. You go watch a private money presentation. What do? They talk about how great the returns are. The far majority of the time, which is okay. But they do not cover what the risks are, what the downfalls are, what the struggles are, whatever it is, the downsides. They do not talk about it, right? They do not talk about that. Now, is there risk? Of course there's risk, right? Now, here is the solution. So in the very first part, what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to bring up a risk. Here's the risk, right? So, for example, Charbonneau is an example. We're raising money for Charbonneau during, the heat of the pandemic. It's the middle of, it's 138 unit property. It's the middle of the summer as well. August or July, I guess, is when we started that, right? And the risk is, man, the time, right? The economic situation is uncertain, right? That is the risk. I know that is the risk. I know that is their worry in their mind. I know that with everything, dude. So what do? I don't sweep it under the rug. I cover it immediately. Now, on this property, right, there is, we know that there's this uncertainty out there. It's interesting. We talk to investors. Some are very certain they want to invest. Some are uncertain because of the economic situation, right? Some, the ones that are certain, they're certain that they want to invest because of the economic situation. Other people are uncertain because of the economic situation. Both, same thing, different results, and both are very valid, right? The key is to understand what's going on with the, with economics, with the environment, but more importantly, to know the solutions behind it. Now, here's the solutions behind that. Is there uncertainty? Absolutely. But let me help you understand how I'm very certain that now is the time to invest. We're getting this property for X dollars. How much under market value on that one per door?
It's like 30,000, something like that.
Was it 30? I think it's 30 something thousand per door under market value. So how do I know? How do I know that this is the time to invest? Because this deal didn't exist a few months ago. It didn't invest because sellers were overconfident, right? So now how do we combat that? Because there is some risk here. There's going to be some turnover because there is going to be people who can't pay that we have to now get out, and there's going to be this cycle of moving in and out, right? So what do? Reserves, backup funds, planning for it, turnover process, right? We put the plan in place. We show them the plan. It's highlighting the risk, showing the solution. That's what they want to see, right? And then also, we talk about return. Anytime I go through returns, I bullet point anything with returns. I go through track records, and I talk about accountability behind the returns and how we take accountability and how the path may change, but it's up to us to always get to the destination. So, hey, right, we don't check that. So, sweet. And then we go through, and another thing that I highlight. If you've ever watched one of my private money presentations, you'll see this. There's a couple things that I do every private money presentation. One of which is talk about mistakes that we've made. Why would I talk about mistakes that we've made?
Because the School of Hard Rocks is overrated.
Hard rocks?
Hard knock.
What did I say?
Melissa thought it was called the School of Hard Rocks.
You know what?
Rocks are hard, though. The School of Hard Rock. Because most people, I want to go against the majority, right? Most people, what do? They want to, we hide the mistakes. No, we're great operators, perfect track record, blah, 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 right? No, we want to address them. These are the mistakes we've made. This is what I've learned from those mistakes, and those are what make us so valuable as operators. To you investors, some of you investors have been investing with us for all of our deals. You've seen some of those mistakes. Thank you for, continuing to invest with us and weathering the storm, and you know that those mistakes are actually what make us so valuable as operators, right? To address it.
Oh, Mike has a question.
Yeah.
On average, what percentage of properties do you end up passing on?
Oh, that's Ryan's question. Ryan only brings it to me if it's a good one. How many, Ryan?
I pass on every deal.
That's not even a joke. Ryan, he does. I feel like he does. He'll bring me something and somebody's pushing. He's like, I don't know. I don't like this one because of X, Y, Z. But Ryan, why do you like it? What are the solutions? What could we work out? Charbonneau was a great example of that, right?
Yeah, good one.
And Signal Hill. Signal Hill was, dude, Ryan thought because Ryan is very conservative, very, very conservative. That's a great thing. And I'm just like this ultimate optimist that just feels like we can find solutions no matter what, right? And those need to be balanced out, right? Ryan keeps me balanced, and you know what? I keep Ryan balanced, right? So, but a lot, Mike. I mean, especially in the beginning. Well, actually, no, I would say more now, right? More now because we really do have tons of deals coming our way. But now it's like, what do we want to spend our time and energy on? In the beginning, we were chasing after every deal that we could possibly think of to make work to get that traction, right? So it changes, but a lot, a lot. I don't know, that's kind of vague, but okay. Now, but with mistakes, right? They know that we have made mistakes. We talk about what they were, how we handled them, and then we thank the investors behind it, right? We cover them. Okay, I want to go through the investors formula, and this is how I want to wrap some of this up, okay? Because as we go through, right, and we do our private money presentations, we're having conversations with brokers, we're having conversations with investors, we're having conversations with different team members. I'm going to give you some tactical strategies, and this is how I want to wrap this thing up, right? Tactical strategies of how we approach these things, right? What we do, how we do it, okay? And why we do it, okay? So I call it the investor's formula. What I want you to think of is creating this invisible fence, right? This invisible fence that kind of that allows, because what we don't want to do, I'm going to tell you what we don't want to do. And I feel like I have to stress this once we talk about frame control and response blocks, because I feel like sometimes naturally people think, well, frame control, that means we're just owning, like we're powering over everyone. That's not it at all. How many of you have been to one of my classes that I've taught? Every one of you. Have any of you ever felt like I've powered over you, or that I was this is it A personality? A-type personality that would just not let you ask questions or not let you reply to anything? Did anybody ever feel like that? I hope not. To my core, I really sincerely hope not, right? It's because, but was I practicing frame control and response blocks the whole time? The whole time I was, right? If somebody would, if somebody is, doubting something or bringing something up, or causing concern or causing it to go off course or something, I don't get angry. I just find a way to bring it back, right? Find a way to bring it back. Strong frame. And how is my frame strong? Because this business has changed my life. I would not be living where I am or doing what I'm doing, or this business has changed my life. There's no person that could ever come to any class and crush my frame. It is impossible, dude. It's impossible. How are you going to tell me that this business doesn't work? You can't. You literally cannot tell me that, right? My frame is impenetrable. Impenetrable. That's a great word, by the way. It's because it's strong, right? But it doesn't mean I have to overbear. That's not the point. Okay, so introduction portion, because let's break this down. We're going to create this invisible fence, okay, so we can safely give full control here, okay? Because I want them to ask questions. I want them to feel like they have the control here once again. So introduction, okay? So mentioning what I mean by this, what investors forum is, we're having this conversation with investors in the beginning, right? So for like a property, let's say we're raising money for a property. I talk about something where like, I've done this a bunch. Right? I actually just picked up a new bike. I'll give you this example. This is a great example. Picked up a new bike, right? And I go into the bike shop, and dude, I'll be honest with you, I don't know anything about bikes. I don't, okay? But I walk into the bike shop, and the gentleman comes out, and in my opinion, the more expensive the bike, the better the bike. In my opinion, that's what I'm thinking, right? But I walk in, and I tell him what I'm looking for. He asks me questions. I tell him what I'm looking for, and he's like, listen, I deal with this kind of thing all the time. I know exactly where to direct you. Come here, I'll give you some guidance here, right? So I do. I go over and he starts giving me some guidance, right? And what this does, this first introduction statement, I deal with this stuff all the time, right? Deal with this stuff all the time. In the beginning of this class even, you just thought about this, but in the beginning of this class, I talked about frame control, and I talked about raising funds, and I talked about how I know that it works, right? How it's not just smile and dial and knock and smile and dial and whatever it is, right? It's not the key, right? And push is not the key. And how do I know that works? It's because I've raised millions of dollars doing exactly what we're talking about right here, right? So once again, when I say that introduction, I've done it a million times. What does that do? That reinforces the status, right? It reinforces the status in a very subtle way. So in your introduction, the takeaway from point number one, I want you to write down something that will reinforce your status, right? Something that will reinforce your status. I deal with this all the time, right? This investor has a question, I deal with these investor questions all the time. Or that problem, yep, deal with it all the time. However you approach it, something that reinforces your status. Number two, and this is, goes right in line with what we talked about with response blocks and just hitting things up front. But it's this subtle way, right? So you outline obvious ways to fail. Outline obvious ways to fail. So, for example, I'll give you the example of the bike example again. First off, when we outline obvious ways to fail, right, it creates this certain boundary, okay? So I told you that my thought on a bike was that the more expensive the bike, the better the bike, right? So, but what the guy tells me, he's like, no. Actually, the higher the price, it just means it's more specialized. So it's not the price, okay? It's the higher the price, it just means it's more specialized, which means it's great for some types of things, but useless for others. So you don't want to look at the price. It's not just paying the highest price is going to get you the best. We need to figure out what you're looking to do, what you want. Think about how he's approaching this, dude. He did it so well. What you want, what you're using it for, and then I can kind of guide you in that direction, right? So it's outlining this obvious way of like, okay, I do know that I don't want to pay top dollar for a bike, right? I don't want to go, spend 10 grand for a bike, whatever, right? I want to stay within this realm here. So then number three, though, which is critical, and this is where we start to define this fence even more, is to highlight counterintuitive ways to fail, right? Counterintuitive ways to fail. Investors, for an example, they think that they know this, okay? When we go through these counterintuitive ways, they think that they know this, but they rarely do, right? Which, what this does is this allows us to just be the expert in pointing out, a few ways and teaching this investor some valuable insight, okay? So I'll give you this example. I'll give you an example with an investor and the bike thing, because the bike thing comes into play too. So the guy says that the bike frame, right? He tells me that he's like, another thing you need to look out for and be aware of is you would think, like, look at these bikes over here, this Kevlar and carbon fiber, they're great, right? He shows it to me, it's light as a freaking feather, right? I'm like, oh yeah, those are awesome. Yeah, that's probably what I need. Yeah, that one. Kevlar, you said? Yep. Light? Yep, sounds good. That'll do great. That's what I'm thinking in my mind. I'm like, oh yeah, he's saying this. I'm like, yeah, no, I know. Yeah, Kevlar, that's what I want. And then he's like, wrong. That's actually wrong. Unless you're a professional. Okay, because those are meant for individuals who are trying to shave off seconds off of their time, right? Seconds off their time. So it's not what you want. There's better bikes. Here's the thing: if you drop that thing, it's going to dent. Right? It's for a professional, so it's not it actually. Now, but your bike helmet, on the other end, that is the opposite. Your bike helmet, the more expensive, the more exotic the material, the safer and higher quality they are. Right? So all of a sudden, he's totally just thrown me into a loop here. Right? It's like, oh shit, dude. I thought that it would be the lightest one that I want, but really it's not. Now all of a sudden, whose frame is stronger? His status is stronger. He knows what he's talking about. He's continually reinforcing this by this subtle structure. Right? Now with investors, as an example. I told you that I mentioned a gentleman by the name of Mike who came down to my office. His dad has an office upstairs, remember? And he comes in with this power frame, right? This power frame of, I'm going to go in and make sure these guys aren't taking advantage of my dad. Great thing. That motive is great, okay? But I also know that my frame is strong because I know that I would never take advantage of anyone, definitely not his dad. I mean, it's not in my repertoire. I don't need that, right? So I know that. But I also know that I need to develop a way to make sure that he knows that. So he comes in the office. First off, I told you that he wanted me to come up. I told him to come down. Great. Now, how I highlighted counterintuitive ways, okay, is we're starting to talk about properties, and I realized that he does know a little bit about properties. So it's like, okay, so I'm going to throw some stuff his way, and I'm going to tell you the stuff that I threw. I do it all the time. In fact, I probably talked about some of them even at the class that you attended, right? Because you don't have to have these million different types of ways that you operate a property that is that is going to combat. You have to have some go-tos, right? That especially when you're talking to investors. Go-tos that that are more counterintuitive, that they're not just 100% certain about, right? So what they're certain about. Number two, obvious ways. Well, we're going to go in, overpay, right? Or if we look at the competition, we make sure that, are we paying too much price per door? And we look at the cap rates and we look at the returns. Those are the obvious things they expect us to say, right? But I'm going to tell you the ways that they don't expect. Right? So we go in and we're going to look at ways, the counterintuitive ways. Okay, so Mike is in here, he's asking me questions, or he's trying to get this gauge, right? And what he's trying to do first, he's trying to see a property. I told you that. But I'm trying to gauge the situation. And he's a nice guy. He really is very nice, but he definitely has a power frame going, right? And so I just kind of do a status alignment statement, like, okay, well, yeah, so these properties, do you know how these properties are valued? Oh yeah, they're valued by like a business, like the NOI. The more you increase the NOI, the more the value is. I'm like, exactly. And so what we need to do when we go into a property, right? We go in and we're looking at things that, operational errors that are being made. And we're also looking at inefficiencies, like how we can go in and things that other people aren't looking for. For example, at the property we just closed on, we're looking at our competition, certainly, and what they're charging for rents and where our rents are. But here's the thing, Mike, that's where most people stop. Most people look at the competition, see what their rents are, see what our rents are, and they're like, oh, well, we're below rents. Awesome, let's dive in. But that's where investors fail, because here's the thing, there's a reason that the rents are low. And if you don't define what that reason is, that's a problem. So I'll tell you what we do. We need to not only know that our rents are low, but we need to know why the rents are low. What amenities does this other property have that we do not have? What do their unit interiors look like that we don't have? What is the cause? Why? And then what that allows us to do is to figure out and adjust, right? Okay, so if I were to go in and add washers and dryers, because my competitors have washers and dryers, we don't. What is the cost for us being able to do that? And then that allows us to understand, is the return there, right? And immediately, all of a sudden, his, and that's just one thing. And I bullet pointed, I hit him with a couple, right? It's just one of them. And all of a sudden, his walls come down. Why do his walls come down? Because all of a sudden, we've highlighted a few counterintuitive ways. And all of a sudden, status alignment has been made. Frame is strong. And all of a sudden, now we can have a conversation. Now we can have this open conversation. But I've created these boundaries, that I'm starting to create these boundaries, right? That he knows that we can have an open conversation here, right? By listing something out that shows that we're an expert in the industry, or that we know what we're doing. Now it's not going to come back to some crazy question that's off base. And if it does, we answer it and bring it back, right? So we highlight counterintuitive ways. So we talked about, I remember with him, we talked about employee units, how we don't give employees, free units, and how there's too many employees on the payroll, and how we keep a reserve account. Most operators only keep a couple months in reserves. We keep 4 to 6 months in reserves, maybe even more. We talk about our turn strategy, how we go in and reduce our turn time, right? Which allows us to maximize the NOI, those kind of things. Okay. Then we list obvious actions, okay? Number 4, obvious actions. We start talking about obvious actions. So obvious actions, what actions they can take, right? So once again, start with no-brainers at this point, right? So already in the back of their mind, they will agree with. Right? So already in the back of their mind, they can agree with. So I'll say something like this. Somebody's talking to me, they want to invest, and I've listed out some things that they do, counterintuitive ways, and then we start talking about this, and I would say something like, listen, as great as the investment is, let's say that this person has, I don't know exactly how much money they have, let's say, okay? And I'm talking about a specific deal. And I'll say, listen, as great as this investment is, I want to be clear though, you should never leverage more than X percent, of your money into one specific deal. So, and then I ask if they're investing their own capital into the deal, right? Their capital and how they're doing that, right? So think about this. They know that. They know that they shouldn't put all their eggs in one basket. That is what do you call it when you say eggs in one basket? Like those kind of sayings? What do you call those sayings? A saying.
I would I'd be able to tell you if you had decent coffee in your office, but you didn't supply the coffee, we cannot supply the answer.
Come on, there's so cliche. There we go. Thank you, Amanda. There we go. Raining cats and dogs. These cliches. Yeah, it's not. By the way, it's not slicing a cat. It's skinning a cat. And I think I was in Phoenix, and I was like, "There's a lot of different ways to slice a cat." No, it's skinning a cat. Okay. Okay. These cliches are cliches for a reason, right? So you don't ever invest all your eggs in one basket, right? It's a cliche for a reason. It's obvious. They're going to agree with that. Yes, for sure, I agree with that. Okay. But then we also need to list less obvious actions. So less obvious actions. This once again is now going to strengthen your frame, build credibility. So less obvious actions would be one of my go-tos, okay, is I tell them, because here's the thing, I'm gonna backtrack for a second, okay? When I'm having this conversation with an investor, you're gonna realize like, I'm not trying to push into a deal. I'm giving them investment advice, showing them this deal, and I'm giving them investment advice. And yes, I want them to invest in the deal. And yes, I'm talking about the deal. But I also, to my core, sincerely, want them to make the decision that is best for them. That's for real. If this is not a good investment for them, for their risk portfolio, their risk appetite, their whatever it is they're doing, I promise you, I really do not want them to invest because it's not going to be a fit. It's going to be a pain the whole hold period, right? So I'm really trying to give guidance and advice from my standpoint. So it's not this push, or it's not this pull, right? It's this kind of a push and a pull mentality, right? But you're building yourself and you're showing by taking these steps that you are an expert in the industry. Hey guys, are you guys doing okay back there? I'm just trying to teach a class up here. Did you guys see what did I just do right there with those guys back there? They're being noisy in the back. I'm not even exactly sure what they're doing.
Do you want to know what I was going to do?
No, hold on. I want to make sure these guys know what I just did.
I was trying to steal back my strong frame.
No, you don't have it. What did I just hit him with? I just hit him with a what? Who knows? Bonus points for whoever types it in. Oh no. Nobody. Is the chat box, Jackson, is the chat box still working?
It's still working.
No, Jason, I hit him with a Dougie. A disrupt, Daniel, you killed it. A disruption.
Oh, don't you dare.
I can't deal with these people in the office. Usually when I tried to bust Melissa's frame, exactly. Jeez almighty, usually when I give these trainings, I'm alone in my office in here. It's a lot, which it's just really Melissa. I gotta get Melissa out here. All right, so the disruptor, that's exactly right? Jason had a question.
Proposed value adding factors.
What do you mean by that? Are we trying to propose, what do you mean by that, Jason? Are you talking about value adds on the properties? Or are you talking about step 5, less obvious actions? Is that what you mean? Jason? You type it in, or are you talking about? Yeah, 7.5. Yeah, so it certainly can be value add opportunities, but my go-to is typically more about them, less obvious actions, meaning I'll bullet point some questions that they should ask the operator. Right? I'll say something like this. However wherever you decide to invest, let me tell you, man, I've invested passively, and now obviously I'm an operator. But as a passive investor, I learned a bunch of things, man. So let's say it's their first investment as an example. If it's your first investment into a real estate syndication, my advice would be to ask the operator some questions, because the operator, whoever you're investing in, as great as properties are, the operator is going to be the biggest factor for you. Okay, so I would ask some questions like, what is their investment approach? What is their investment approach? How do they go about it, right? I would also ask, what's the biggest risk on the deal? Listen, if they don't say that there are any risks, that's a sure sign that you should probably go a different direction, because there's always risks. There's always risks on these deals. I would also ask how long the teams work together. Sometimes, if they haven't, worked together for a long time, I just want to know, right, what their strategy is. Really, the main thing I want to know with that is I want to know, do they have these roles and responsibilities where it is clearly defined of who is doing what? If not, and they can't answer those, it's a red flag too. I just feel like there'll be things lost in the mix. I'll also ask, why should, an investor invest with your company? Why do you think I should invest with your company? And then I say this, if I ask that and they do not reply with, let's say that, why do you think that I should invest with your company? And they do not reply with something along the lines of asking me questions of what my needs as an investor are, and they're just trying to tell me why I should invest without knowing what I'm needing, what my needs are, what my wants are, then I'm not interested. Right? Because once again, I want to align with people that I know that I'm investing in their deal because it fits. If they don't ask that, then they don't necessarily care about my needs. So that's a question that I always ask. Another thing that I would tell you is how's the preferred return being structured, right? Sometimes I structure it with a hurdle, and you get the preferred return. The preferred return is the hurdle, and then you split everything past. Sometimes it's a catch up where it's just a true, right? How is it being structured, right? And I explain some of those details to them. So what this does, right? All of a sudden, first off, is that valuable to the investor? Of course, right? And just giving them some investment advice. And what does that do? Well, value creation is the key to wealth creation. Why? Because when you provide value, listen, there's a chance that this investor, as an example, could roll out, go invest with somebody else. That's okay. I provide value, and as long as you continue to provide value, you'll continue to be able to grow wealth. Why? Because it comes back. It just does. It comes back full circle. I believe it to my core. But what does this investor know? This investor knows that I have, my frame is strong, right? And once again, my status alignment is certainly there. Then we hand over control. This is key, okay? This is key. So So for another thing with that, Jason, on number 5, coming back to your question, value-adding tactics. Absolutely, we could bullet point some property-specific things, some operational tactics that we use for sure. Okay, and I did that, with Mike, who came down here. The gentleman who was his dad's wanting to invest. It's exactly what we did. I bullet pointed some operational strategies. I didn't need to bullet point, telling him about less, questions he should ask operators. I didn't need to do that. Because he already wanted to grill with questions, right? He had plenty of questions. Last thing I wanted to do was tell him to ask more questions. And with him, it was showing him and helping him understand, breaking down the power frame, right? Status alignment, showing him that I know what I'm talking about. And that was by exactly what you mentioned, which is outlining some operational strategies that some people don't think about, right? These little things that immediately show that there's, that we know what we're doing there. The number 6, though, is handing over control. And this is really important, man, because, so something along the lines like this. So handing over control with some sort of a phrase that detaches you from the outcome, right? That detaches you from the outcome. Like, anyway, I've done this a whole bunch of times. That's how I would approach it. Hey, you're going into investing. Yeah, I've done this a whole bunch of times, like I mentioned, but that's how I'd approach it. But, do whatever's best for you type thing, right? You probably heard me say something like that even at the class. Well, yeah, hey, this is how I'd approach it, right? Went through a whole bunch of different coaching programs, acquired a whole bunch of real estate. This is how I would go about it. But hey, you need to make the decision that's best for you. Is that a tactic? No, that is truly how I believe. I believe that you should do what is best for you. I do, to my core, right? So it's the same thing. We want them to do that. But what that does, I want you to understand what that does. That relieves the pressure from them. It's not, hey, you need to do this right this very second. Or, hey, it's not, you need to invest in this deal right this very second. No. It relieves the pressure by taking a step back that is valuable and shows that you care. I like that. That's freaking great. I agree, right? Truly care for what they've done. And if you've done this correctly, here's what's going to start happening, okay? If you've done this correctly, and you've handed over this control correctly, and you've created this invisible fence correctly, what's going to happen is they're going to start to ask questions. But those questions will more likely stay within the boundaries that you've created, right? Stay within the boundaries that you've created. They're not going to start asking you, if you've done it correctly, about, track record on a deal, or do you know what you've done, or how long of whatever it is, right? That is going to, throw you off. It's because you've found ways to let them know that you're an expert by guiding them through this, right? That you know what you're doing by guiding them through this. You've overcome their concerns. You've weeded in response blocks because of how you've structured that, right? That's 6, and you hand over the control. Now, 7 is this. Even though you've created this fence, I'm not gonna lie, my voice is so rough because last night, during the fire knife, I yelled way too much. I knew as I was yelling during that I was gonna, Ryan, jeez, how do we not have that video? Ryan, we gotta show that. Ryan was the one who got called up to dance during the luau. Once again, shocked at the dance moves, this gentleman. Shocked at the dance move that Ryan pulled out, and shocked that he has those dance moves and that he is single.
I think we can give the credit to TikTok.
To TikTok. He's been learning dance moves from TikTok.
I look in the mirror and I dance. That's what it is.
Okay, number 7, okay, is you redirect to keep back in bounds. Now, investors, I'll say investors, but I mean, this could be investors, it could be brokers, sellers, whoever we're having this conversation with, right? They might stray, right? They may stray, outside of the fence. And here's how you deal with that as it comes up. Let them fully object, and you listen. Maybe they object with something that you're saying. Let them fully object and listen. Once again, think back to the class that you went to. I'm sure, there's a whole bunch of different people here from a whole bunch of different classes, but I'm sure that at some point there was some sort of an objection, some sort of a concern that I addressed or that somebody brought up by asking questions, right? I'm sure. Because, in any class there is, right? And I hope that how I handled that, because I'm not perfect either, I hope how I handled that was to let them fully object and listen to what the concern is. But then you also probably saw me firmly redirect back, whatever that is, firmly redirect back to where the boundaries are. Oh, hey, listen, people are always worried about that issue. Honestly, it's crazy. Like, people are always worried about that issue, but in reality, it's never the issue. There's 100 plus things that to worry about when investing, but only 5 really matter, right? There's only a few things that truly matter, and here's what it is. Property, grade, the operators, whatever, right? It's bringing them back into this, right? Once again, reestablishing, it's listening, and it's validating, right? But it's bringing them back into the boundary. Why? Because our frame is strong, man. We know what boundary is there, and we know where we can guide, right? But we are listening wholeheartedly. We're not discouraging that. And this comes into step 8, which is also very, very important. Here's the thing, too. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. What we don't want, okay? Let's say that some investors are still just trying to get outside. They don't abide by the fence. Okay, they don't abide by the fence. They just want to continue to grill on things that really don't matter, right? And you can tell that they're going to be a pain in the ass, because those will happen. I promise you, you will see investors come through like that. So what do we do there? Well, I don't want that. I don't want that. It's not that I'm ever afraid of any questions, but man, it's quality of life, man. It's quality of life. I don't want to partner with investors who are a pain in the ass, right? But think of it this way too, meaning you're giving them this guidance, and they're not listening at all. Okay, that's frustrating, right? But understand on the other side too, some just, they don't want to invest they don't want to, follow the formula. That will be a pain in the ass investor. But also understand this, okay? For us, okay, when they have objections, because an investor will have an objection, a broker will have an objection, a seller will have an objection, there will be objections. So when they have objections, we do not beat down every objection. We do not beat down every objection or discourage pessimism. We don't do it. We welcome it. We acknowledge it. We acknowledge the downside. You think of a growth mindset like we talked about and feedback. We want that kind of stuff. It's not because we are nervous about, where our position is. We know we want the feedback because we know that we are there to grow. And everyone has a perspective. And here's the thing, if you try to beat down every objection, then you're now the pain in the ass operator that nobody will want to do business with. There's pain in the ass operators, there's pain in the ass investors and operators, right? Valid objections will come up on every deal. Things that you have not thought about. Ryan, have you ever been asked a question from an investor that you haven't thought about before and thought, oh shit, I should have probably thought about that?
Oh, yeah.
Think of Maled. Remember Maled when he came through and he was asking us all sorts of stuff about the taxes and how they're reassessed and how we defined it. Remember that?
Yeah.
Do you?
I do, definitely. But yeah, for sure.
Dude, seriously, we hung up that call and we were like, geez, those are freaking valid, man. That is awesome. How did he get all that information so fast? We got to figure out how we did that, right? So understand, valid objections will come up. And I want you to think of it this way. As a valid objection comes up, if you're telling your investors otherwise, that objection is not valid. That is, by your actions, by what you're doing, it's not valid. And shooting down all their objections, that will signal that you are less than authentic, or worse, once again, just a pain in the ass to work with. You want to be authentic. You want to be open to feedback. You want to be open to questions. But we try to keep this within this boundary, right, so we can progress the movement. It is this fine line of just letting things run wild that doesn't move in the direction. And what is valuable to your investors, helping them get down the path and move in the direction. And if it's a fit, great. If it's not, right? And understanding that, it's a good idea to bring to the surface the most obvious flaws in your plan. And this is a response block, right? So in the beginning of a private money presentation, I'll try to talk about the most obvious flaws to whatever plan it is, right? We want to bring it up before the investor does. And the reason that we want to bring it up before the investor does is because if you don't acknowledge them, they will acknowledge them. But the tough part is they're going to do that at the most inconvenient times, right? The most inconvenient times. But if you bring those up in the very beginning, then they will also help you gain trust. For example, Melissa, where were we the other day? What was happening the other day when you said, you were talking about being in Dallas, talking to the broker, and one broker was trying to hide stuff. The other broker immediately told you about concerns. And what did you say with that?
I would much rather work with someone who's going to tell me the concerns up front than expect me to waste my time trying to find those concerns. That's someone that I trust and I would continue to want to do business with.
Think about what that broker did. What did that broker do? He did exactly what we're teaching here.
100%.
He did exactly what we're teaching.
And ultimately, those are things that maybe we wouldn't have noticed. That he doesn't know that. What he knows is he's being transparent and he's gaining our long-term business. It's not about the one deal. It's about the 5 million that are going to happen after this.
Yep.
That is someone I want to work with. Because if you're thinking short-term, you're not my person.
Yeah, I love that. That's it. So that's a question. Is it okay to say, let me confirm, look into that and get back to you? Absolutely, Mike. No question. That is, I do that all the time. Because it is, Mike, I heard you're coming out to Kauai. Is that true? Yeah, I love it. Ah, good. It's awesome. Get out here, man. You got to swing over to Maui and say hi for sure. Just a little jump, just a little puddle jump over. But February 5th, nice. So yeah, I say that all the time. Stuff like that all the time. And here's once again why that is powerful. It's because you're owning that you don't know it. Like people don't expect you to know everything, right? So when they fire a question, you don't know it or you're not sure, which is actually, honestly, it's what happened with Maled. I was talking about this experience with Ryan with Maled. It's exactly what happened. He asked us some questions with the tax, with taxes and how they're going to be reassessed. And we did not know the exact answers that he was asking. We were like, geez, man, those are really good. I actually don't know that. Let me go, take a look, right? It's validating him, like, because he obviously knows what he's talking about. We're basically asking a question like that, validating that, letting him know I'm going to go look. That doesn't reduce our frame. In my opinion, that doesn't reduce our frame. That strengthens our frame because we're going and getting it done. Now the key is to get it and come back as fast as possible, right? Speed of execution on that. But as you acknowledge those things up front, so rehashing a couple of things we've went through. Frame control. Frame control is not just being arrogant about a frame trying to own everything, okay? It is what really makes a frame strong, right? Is to be able to know why the frame is strong and defining why the frame is strong. And you can define why the frame is strong by preparing, right? Preparing what their objections are, how you're going to overcome their objections. And you're overcoming their objections by talking on solutions. And so when you know the solutions, you know your frame is strong because you know a solution behind what their concern is. That strengthens your frame, right? It's also your individual identity that will continue to be in question the whole time you go through, which is why working on ourselves is so important. The more we work on ourselves, the more we prepare, the more we grow, the more our identity changes. And once again, like right now, nobody, an investor, anybody could come and tell me and bust my frame that multifamily is a bad investment. I just see it as almost impossible at this point. Now, do I know that there's risks? Yeah, here's what the risks are, but here's what the solutions are, right? Anyway, we address them. So frames, right? We have powerful frames. We have, we have analyst frames. We have, the prize frame, right? We have, we're breaking those with intrigue drops, right? But the key, once again, is coming back to preparation. Prepare, and then cover things up front. Jay, you ready to chime in? Jay's just standing over here looking like he's ready. I love it. Okay, so that is, I want to open it up to questions before we wrap up.
This is how I spend my sales training.
I want Cheetos and Dr. Peppers, Ryan just brought in here. So I want to open it up to questions.
It's not a monster, at least.
He's not a monster. That's it. See,
I had this morning.
progress. Okay, I want to go over. Hold on. Yeah, so I'll read this. It helps to think of objections, especially if they come up at the end of a presentation, not as pushback, but as a question or concern. Objections on the back end are valuable. They are indicative of what we might have failed to address earlier in the presentation. Epitome of a growth mindset, though. And once again, that's the frame. The frame, how we view a situation, remember, is that these conversations, they're not bad. These questions, they're not bad things. They're good, man. They wouldn't ask them if they weren't interested in them being solved. So it is, you have to frame why those are good or why they're not good, right? There is some setbacks I feel like that people have. I actually made this note today and I forgot to cover this, but some setbacks that people have in this process. First off, what I did is I Googled some of the top fears because I was curious, right? If sales would be in there, and sure enough, absolutely it was in there. Sales, more social situations, right? Really anything putting yourself out there, social situations like that, it's one of the biggest fears out there. But with sales, when we're trying to have conversations, there's things that cause us, it comes really down to our mindset and form of thinking, right? One of those is mind reading, and what happens is we assume that people aren't interested or that our things, contradict with theirs, but there's no realistic reason behind that, right? We just feel like we can read their minds that it's not a good fit. It's never the case. It is sometimes the case, but we should let them tell us, not us trying to tell them. And then fortune telling. And fortune telling is projecting into the future, thinking that nobody will be interested. Therefore, I'm not going to make any broker calls or investor calls, right? We don't do those kind of things. We take the steps, we focus on the solutions and the things that we can control, and as we do that, our frame strengthens. All right, I want to open it up to questions before we wrap up, though, for sure. And this will be a part one of a part two because I was going to do, just so you know, I was going to do everything as a combined, but I just felt like it was like too much. So I feel like we need to review these things and go through at a higher level. Then we truly need to dive into those things, like how to tactically approach it, diving in. So this will be a part one of two, in my opinion, maybe even a part one of three. We'll see, but definitely a part one of two at the bare minimum. Will this recording be available? Yeah, for sure. Daniel, where are you going to add that? Jay, is that just going to the path, right?
It'll end up on the path.
It'll end up on the path.
Sometime early next week.
The books you mentioned is an order you recommend reading. Yes, Pitch Anything first. Pitch Anything is a phenomenal book. It'll help you I love that book. It's a great book. That's for sure. But yeah, Daniel, it'll be in the path. Where on the path will I find this? Jackson?
They'll be able to see it. It'll be under the document library probably.
Document library, or will it be, or is it like one of its own individual tabs?
They'll see it for
Because
sure.
we're going to put, so let's do it as like an individual block, right?
Yeah.
So it'll be in the video library. Everything eventually ends up in the video library, but we'll actually add an actual tile. There will be a sales training tile, and we'll just add all sales training into that. Is that cool?
Perfect.
Wait. Anybody else? Any other questions? Mahalo nui loa. Thank you. Mahalo, Daniel. I appreciate that. I love it. And see if you guys learn any Hawaiian words while you're here?
Manuia.
What does it mean?
Long life.
Long laugh. I love it.
Wahana.
Hey, Chase, you're very welcome. Thanks for saying that. You too, Cody. Good to hear from both of y'all for sure. Glad you found some value in it. And once again, if questions come up or, you're welcome, Megan. Thanks so much. If questions come up, or let's say that you have this conversation, you're trying something out, right? And it's not, it doesn't go, as planned. Hit us up, man. Hit us up with questions. Right? We'll go through, we'll troubleshoot it with you, okay? Frankie, you're very welcome. Are the boot camp sessions going to be on the path? We did just record. Hey, Phil, thank you so much, man. I'm still eating through all that candy you sent, Philip. My gosh, I've gained. You know what? You and Teresita are in trouble. I just keep those cookies, the best cookies I've ever had in my life.
The best cookies.
You ate my cookies?
Dang right I did.
Get out of those.
Yep, I even stuck a few in my suitcase to take home.
Oh, they're so good, man. Thanks so much, Tanya. Appreciate it. Hey, awesome. Thanks, Rafi. I appreciate that. So, man, let us know as you go through. You know, if you're having any questions, anything that we can help with, we'll troubleshoot it for you, or troubleshoot it with you for sure. Hey, yeah, that's so. This is a direct message. Do you care if? So, but I love it. So I'm going to say this. It's, hey, in fact, Jackson, if you don't mind throwing a to-do item for me, you do this. It was, you know, do you have a frequently asked question or common objection list for brokers and investors that you can share? That we can weave into presentations. I'll put that together for sure. Absolutely. I don't have like an official document, but I absolutely have them. So I'll put it together in an official document and send it out for sure. So all that is a to-do. Great question. Phenomenal question. Ryan got his too. Well, no, Ryan, you haven't been home for yours yet, right? Phil just asked that.
I haven't been home.
No, so he flew out. He said, Philip, he said he flew out the day it came in or something, right?
The day after.
The day. Oh, so no, you said your mom got it or something.
No, my mom, I'd already gone to Dallas.
Oh, yeah, so he was out. So,
Wait,
dude,
so does that mean that I need to go to Florida too?
yes.
Your husband told me no.
Yeah, Frankie, for sure. Let's touch base for sure. Let us know how we can help or what happened for sure. More than willing, man. More than willing. Awesome. Thanks, Sandra. Yeah, absolutely, Frankie. Send him over for sure. Sweet. Well, you guys are amazing, man. It's fun to spend a Saturday morning with y'all, or probably afternoon your time, but morning my time.
I'm going to listen to whales talk.
we're gonna go do some whale watching. So, all right, hit us up. Send us any questions. I want to say one last thing before I chime out, which is Sandra asked, will we be putting Ryan's dance techniques on the path? Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We're making a collage as we speak.
Sandra, don't send me any underwriting for that comment.
Oh, man. And we will definitely post on the Facebook page for sure. Oh, I love it. All right, hey, y'all go have a great weekend for sure. And be looking out for Ryan's dance videos, no question.
And my backflip.
And his backflip. We got to throw the backflip in. I wish I could do a backflip. I didn't do that. All right, thank you guys so much. Once again, seriously, let us know how we can help, okay? And remember, we have tons of support in the office, too. We're hiring, we've hired more in-office coaches and in-office underwriters. So if you don't know that, let us know. We'll connect you with them, okay? So thank you all so much. We'll talk soon, okay? Aloha.